It is The Drive, but no Brian Wilson today. A hearty good afternoon to you and yours. It's 3:04. Happy Friday. Happy December 29, 2023. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, subbing in for the vacationing Brian Wilson. He'll be back in the new year, 2024. I'll be back in my normal slot between noon and 3 every day, Monday through Friday typically, on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. While I can still visualize her, while I can still see her with my eyeballs, I just want to thank Joan Jones again for subbing in this week on the Matt Murphy Show. What a great job she did. What a great addition to the Super Talk 99.7 WTN family. And we are one big, happy family, you included. And so we thank Joan for everything. Thanks to Cameron Smith for filling in for me last week. I know he was in for Chris Hand this week. A lot of moving parts during the holiday season, and we're part of those moving parts as we will carry you through the drive until 7 o'clock this evening, and then we will call it a day. We'll call it a week. We'll call it a year. Matt Murphy with you until then. Mason Fleming is behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. And that's it. That's it. It's me, and it's you, and that's it. Hello, Mason.
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Pretty good, buddy. You all right?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little tired, but I'm okay.
Yeah, you've been here since when?
Got here at 4:30 this morning.
Have you been here since 4:30?
Yeah.
What?
Like, I went and got food for a little bit, for like an hour, and then I came back to relieve Mac Maury.
What world are we living in? So you were subbing in for Johnny B.
Yeah, I was here for Johnny B.
And then Mac took over from 9 to noon.
Yeah, with Cameron.
He was the producer from 9 to noon, and then you took back over at noon, and you're here till 7.
Yes, sir.
Wow. You want to just leave early?
I'd love to, but I don't think you can reach the board from here.
No, I would go with you.
Oh, I'm fine with that. We could plug in best ofs.
We could figure it out. We're here.
Dead air is
here
okay, right?
Look, no, absolutely not. That's a bad word in this business. So yeah.
It's a what?
Look, we're here for the duration, and we're here for you until 7 o'clock tonight. There's lots to talk about, believe it or not. We'll do a little year-end stuff, a year-end review, if you will, and I would love your participation on that. I've got my good friend and life consultant, my legal correspondent, Jay St. Clair. He'll be here at 4 o'clock today. At 5 o'clock, we welcome from the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, Aaron Goldbranson, and you on the phones all afternoon long at 615-737-9986. That's some applause there. I don't know which ones that's for, but that's for whomever.
It's a collective. It's a group.
We would love to hear from you throughout the course of the afternoon as we close out 2024. This is our last day of live programming in 2023. There might be some stuff going on the weekends. I don't want to diminish what the weekend folk do. So I imagine there is a show or two that will be live tomorrow. But as far as the Monday through Friday stuff goes, best of programming on Monday, being New Year's Day, and then we're back in our normal schedules with Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, and Brian Wilson starting on Tuesday. It's my episode 481, and I appreciate every single one of those days with you, and I thank you for being with me this Friday, December 29, 2023. Join us on a variety of platforms. You can find us on the radio, obviously, 99.7 WTN. You can also find us online. Anywhere where news or information is streamed, anywhere music is streamed, you'll find Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Go to your streaming platform, whether it's iHeart, Spotify, TuneIn, whatever it might be. Type in Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You'll find us there, and you can take us with your phone or your streaming platform anywhere you go. You can also find us on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, up and running if you want to put an ugly face with this mellifluous voice. Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Find us there. And hello, you can join in on the conversation via the F&M Bank chat line on Super Talk Television. You're also invited to super text us at 615-737-9986. All right, there's a big bash going on in Nashville for New Year's Eve. And I'm wondering if any of you are going or have been. Now, I understand the folks we're talking to. I do not pretend to know what you do in your daily life, but I understand basic demographics of the audience that we have and that we serve on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And so I would dare say that this is perhaps a younger man or woman's game with regard to New Year's Eve and downtown Nashville. But I'm wondering if any of you, if I'm catching anybody that's ever done this, I want a descriptor. I want a description. I want to know what's going on in Nashville, Tennessee on New Year's Eve. Now, I've been here a couple of years. I've never availed myself of Broadway on New Year's Eve. I try not to go to Broadway on a Friday or a Saturday. It gets a little sticky even then. I can't imagine going down on Broadway where there's an extra, I don't know, 100 or 200,000 people going on. But that's what you get on the New Year's Eve bash. New Year's Eve, called the Big Bash, has a number of musical acts going on all throughout the course of the day. I've got a listing of some of those acts. It's pretty cool. On December 31st, over 50 back-to-back performances in and around Broadway on New Year's Eve, including, let's see, let me give you the rundown. You've got, between the years they've had in 2023 and the year to come in 2024, Megan Maroney and Bailey Zimmerman will play somewhere in the range of 250 concerts in front of nearly 10 million pop-loving country music fans. Let me see. Leonard Skinner's playing on New Year's Eve. Is that right? Also playing. I don't even know who these folks are, and perhaps I should. I mean, I know who Lainey Wilson is, and I know that Lainey Wilson is headlining the downtown Nashville New Year's Eve Bicentennial Park, or she'll be at Bicentennial Park. The story that I'm reading from comes from the Tennessean, and I don't know who Megan Maroney or Bailey Zimmerman are. Now, maybe I should, but I don't. I know who some of these other acts are that will be playing in and around the city. Elle King, Thomas Rhett, Trace Adkins, Grace Bowers, Kane Brown, Jackson Dean, Cody Johnson, don't know. Dustin Lynch, I'm feeling old. Parker McCollum, Brothers Osborne, John Party, Carly Pierce, Blake Shelton, know him. Trombone Shorty, know him. Morgan Wallen, heard of him. And then Leonard Skinner, what is left of them, will be there as well. Those are just some of the acts coming to New Year's Eve and to the Big Bash going on in Nashville, Tennessee. I would not get anywhere near downtown Nashville on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. I actually met Thomas Rhett last month. It's kind of cool. I was at the Need to Breathe concert that was over at the Predator Stadium, and I saw him over in the little private area squared off in the middle of the area. And my friend works for Need to Breathe. He was on tour with them for all of their whole show, and he got us backstage passes, and I was wandering around, and I had probably the most uncomfortable interaction I've ever had with anybody. Not on his fault.
With Thomas Rhett?
Yeah, with Thomas Rhett. Not his fault. All on me. But it was definitely a little uncomfortable.
Okay, I need some of this in my life. Describe it to me.
I saw him from across the way.
Right, wait,
we're in the same little square area.
You have to walk slow with me because I'm a pop culture illiterate. Thomas Rhett is a country music star?
Country music star.
Okay.
Who he also actually toured with, or my roommate, his name is Jake.
Okay.
Went on tour with him. He does a lot of the audio and a lot of the setup and tear down for their stages.
And he's a pretty big deal nowadays.
Yeah, Thomas Rhett is doing pretty well for himself.
You knew him by sight?
I recognized him from sight.
All right. All right. And you what? So tell me about the interaction.
We finished the concert with Need to Breathe. We were walking out of the arena, and I saw him walking the same way, and I was like, you know what? I looked over at the guys I was with, and I was like, hey, I'm going to say hi to him. What's the worst that's going to happen? He says hi and walks away, or says, I'm not taking pictures. Cool. I walked up to him, and the first line out of my mouth was, hey, do you remember Jake? And he goes, who are you?
Did he really?
Yeah. And I was like, Jake, he was on your tour. He did audio for you. And he was like, oh, yeah. And I go, he's my roommate. I just wanted to say hi and tell him that I met you. And he goes, cool. Were you in
because I've done this before where you get into something and you realize I've completely screwed this up and there's no way to repair it.
I had realized after I said the words, do you know Jake? And I was like, I'm backpedal, do something, get out of this. And I just kept going. Words kept falling out of my mouth, and I just kept going.
Were you nervous?
Oh, not at first, but then I said that and was like, where do I go in this conversation? This is the worst conversation known to man. It's like, hey, do you know this random guy that you met for a little bit on tour? I happen to live with him.
Was he nice enough about it?
Oh yeah. He was super chill about it. He seems like a nice guy. He went to Good Pasture, the private Christian school, here in Tennessee, with one of my friends. And you
should have led with that. Hey, you went to Good Pasture with one of my friends.
Yeah. Did you know you played on soccer team with one of my friends? Wow, that's crazy.
Do you know Jake?
Great opening line.
It's going to be my line for any time something gets awkward.
Please do.
On today's show. I'm just going to say, do you know Jake?
Hey, do you know Jake?
Yeah.
It's my favorite celebrity interaction.
Did he take a photo with you?
Nope. I didn't ask him to. I walked away.
You gave up on it?
I was like, well, nice to meet you, man.
Okay, I'm going to go find Jake.
I'm going to, the guy that, you know him.
You know what I'm talking about. That's pretty good. You get a chance. You get chance in your other life, in your other job. You get chance interactions with some of these folks.
Yeah,
and I love hearing about those types of stories because I want to know. I can tell a lot about celebrities based on how they treat people like you.
I hate Reba.
I do too.
For that reason. I met her when I used to work over the Omni.
Hate's a strong word, but
it's a strong word.
You had the interaction. Reba's never been my cup of tea. I'll say it that way. You had an interaction with her though.
Yeah, I've only seen like internet interactions with her. I've only seen her like on like the Today Show or something like that. I'm like, oh, she seems kind of full of herself. She's a celebrity. She's been a celebrity for a very long time, so I can see why she kind of has a big head. And then I met her at the CMTs a couple of years ago. And then I realized why she thinks she has a big head. Or I don't know why she has it.
She just wasn't very nice.
She wasn't nice at all. She yelled at a bunch of our valets. She was very snippy at a lot of us and was like, if you guys don't get your acts together, I'm going to report you all to the hotel and help get you all fired and stuff like that. And I was like, I just said hi to you. Like,
yeah, it's weird.
Her little entourage, she had two SUVs that pulled up and her entire entourage around her were basically kind of doing crowd control around her. And they're like, hey, here's those keys. We'll take care of it. And I was like, cool. Yeah, I'll leave your SUVs up here so you guys can get out of here pretty quickly so you're not swarmed by a bunch of random people. And just super aggressive the entire time. It wasn't very fun.
Celebrities of that level, they don't live in the real world.
Oh, absolutely not.
And with that comes a lot of good, obviously, but with it comes a lot of bad, too.
Oh, yeah.
In as much as they can't go, the good outweighs the bad. They ask for the life that they lead, don't get me wrong, but they can't go to a restaurant and just sit down at a restaurant and have a meal, right?
No.
Their life is structured differently. At the same time, these are folks that have not had to, Reba McEntire has not had to get in a car and drive herself somewhere and be there on time in when? Since her
years.
Early 20s or whatever?
At least, yeah.
Right? So she doesn't understand, celebrities by their very nature, along those levels, they don't understand what we go through, what normal folks go through.
Absolutely not. But what blows my mind is there are people like Reba, and you have interactions like that, and then there are interactions like with Dolly. Every interaction I hear about that people have with Dolly Parton
is a positive interaction.
Is the most positive interaction I've ever heard of.
The one person that of a celebrity level along those lines. I'm not saying that anybody's along the lines of Dolly because I'm on record as saying she's the finest human being that's walking the earth. But anyway, consistently you hear that this is a genuinely good human being is Keanu Reeves.
I've heard great things about him. Yeah.
Every story,
every time,
every interaction that you hear about Keanu Reeves, it's a positive interaction. It's one of my favorite celebrities stories to tell. It's the ice cream story.
I don't think I've heard that one.
So it was after The Matrix. It was in Australia. The story goes that Keanu Reeves was filming some movie in Australia, and he wanted to go see a Robert Downey Jr. film, and I forget the name of the film. From Hell is actually the name of the film. And he goes to the theater early morning. It's like the first showing in the theater. There's nobody there. This young kid, 16 years old, takes his ticket and realizes immediately that it's Keanu Reeves. And as he's standing there buying the ticket, the kid's trying to figure out how to get his autograph. But he doesn't want to be that guy. He doesn't want to say, hey, do you know Jake? He doesn't want to do that. So the kid says, hey, if you sign this register, I can get you the employee discount. And it was entirely a ruse to get Keanu Reeves' signature. And Keanu Reeves he looked confused and said, "But I don't work here. I shouldn't get the employee discount." And the kid,
genuine.
And the kid's like, okay, never mind. All right, that's fine. And they do the interaction. So the kid goes on and does his other stuff, and he's doing some other duties, and he has to go to one of the projection rooms. He's doing something in the projection room, and about 5 minutes later, this is a real story, about 5 minutes later, knock on the door. He opens the door, and it's Keanu Reeves, and he's standing with an ice cream. And he said, "Hey, they told me where you were. I realized that maybe you were asking me about that because you wanted my autograph, and I didn't want to leave you hanging." And he hands him a receipt with his signature on it. And it was a receipt for the ice cream that he bought. And he turns around and walks off, and the kid that's telling the story, he relates the story online, said as he's walking off, he throws the ice cream in a trash can, walking the other way. So Keanu Reeves, and this was right after The Matrix came out, one of the biggest movie stars on the planet at the time, bought an ice cream at a movie theater just so he could give a guy an autograph. Now, he could have given him the autograph. I don't know why he did it that way, but that's the way he did it. And I think it's a pretty cool story.
That's great. I do love that. It just seems so not down to.
It does seem down to earth.
Yeah, it's just a great wholesome story, and I love that.
Well, there's good people and there's bad people, and there's
there's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. And then there's
who stands above them all.
And then there's Reba. According to Mason, not according to me, Reba.
I'll take that.
I love you. 321 on Super Talk. All right, we'll get into some news of the day. We'll talk about the year that was 2023. I will ask you the question, what were the best of, worst of stories of the year 2023? I've got a couple of ideas of my own. And several of you want to talk about New Year's Eve in Nashville. I want to talk to Heather and Butch. We'll do that next. It's 321 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity, banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
The drive is ongoing. It's 3:25. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Murphy, and for Brian Wilson. Normally, you hear me from noon until 3. Hopefully, you listen. If you're not able, well, priorities, people. Priorities. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number. We'd love to hear from you. Discussing New Year's Eve festivities. There's some news going on today, although, I don't like to lie to you. I don't. It's light. In terms of breaking news, there's not a lot of breaking information or breaking news happening right now. And if there is anything that breaks, I'm here for you. I got your back. Until then, I'd love to converse about some of the lighter side of the news, including New Year's Eve. Now, some of the stories we're watching, I do have a story about an appliance crackdown that's happening in 2024. I have a couple of new laws that are coming into place in the state of Tennessee in 2024. We'll talk about that. We'll have a bit of a year-end review. We'll talk with our man, Jay St. Clair, my legal correspondent, my life consultant. That's at 4:05. I have a Friday segment on my show every Friday, and we will do that on the drive at 4:05 this afternoon. Aaron Gulbranson will be here at 5:05 this afternoon. You on the phone, 615-737-9986. Heather has called in with a thought on New Year's Eve. Hello, Heather. Good afternoon.
Hello. So New Year's Eve in Nashville is fantastic. I'm so glad they started airing it nationally, I think last year, and doing so much coverage of all the honky tonks and then the event at Bicentennial Mall. And they used to do the music note drop at the end of Broadway, but it was smart to move it to Bicentennial Mall. There's a lot more room, and it's just fantastic. When you have, and all the honky tonks downtown, normally you're in and out of there, no cover charge, but on New Year's Eve, it's reservations and cover charge. So, don't go down there expecting to be able to wander in and out like normal. But I generally, because I've got some age on me, I usually load up as many grandchildren as I can fit in the car, and about 11:15, 11:30, we head down to the Bicentennial Mall and go in for the tail end of it and watch the music note drop and the fireworks, and there's a big 2024 lighted sign that you can pose for pictures in front of at the end at Jefferson Street, and it's just fantastic. It's a lot of fun to get in and out of there.
Is the music note on the amphitheater side, or is it on the Jefferson Street side?
It's on the amphitheater side, except they don't use the amphitheater for the stage because it's too small and it's down.
Right.
They build a big stage so that you can see the stage all the way back, and they have screens up. You can stay in the back where it's not too crowded and still hear everything and see everything on the screens, and it's lots and lots of fun.
I don't want you to give up secrets here, Heather, but if you're showing up at 11:15, where in the world are you parking?
There's parking around there.
Is it?
Off the Jefferson Street end, and
you can find it.
They're not, and they're not being real strict on parking at New Year's Eve because everybody's trying to get in there.
I get it. Well, you're inspiring me, Heather. You almost make me want to go. Do you know when they moved the music note from Broadway to Bicentennial? What year it was?
It's been at least 5 years ago. I don't know exactly, but it's been a while, and it was a good move. It was a smart move.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I think that's just too much for Lower Broad with all of the honky-tonks and everything going on with all of the different bars and businesses happening there. I think it might be too much to cram everyone into that area. It makes a lot of sense that they would move it. And you're right. And thank you, Heather, for the call and the information. It is on, I think, CBS this year and Paramount Plus. I believe I have that right. Leonard Skinnard's playing the New Year's Eve Live, Nashville's Big Bash, airing on CBS and Paramount Plus. And obviously, there's a lot of other acts going on. Headliner Lainey Wilson's happening. Maroney and Zimmerman apparently are not a part of a duo. I was putting them together. They're separate acts. My bad. I'm 50 years old, but I've long been an old man when it comes to pop culture. My ability to reference pop culture ended in about 2000, and after that, I'm a little bit zoned out on it, so you'll have to forgive me on that. But Heather almost makes it seem worthwhile to get down there to Bicentennial Park toward the end of the evening to watch the music note drop. This from 0166. Matt, Ronnie Dunn is a great guy. I met him years ago at the Harley shop. I did not act like I knew who he was. We talked for about an hour. Great, great guy. Love it. If you talked to a celebrity like Ronnie Dunn for an hour and he didn't tell you who he was, then he's my kind of people. Does that make sense? Because typically celebrities along those lines make assumptions that you know who they are, and their egos are such where they expect a reference to who they are pretty early on in the conversation. So if you're talking for an hour and they've not referenced who they are or what they do, I absolutely love that. That's my kind of folks. My kind of folks. I've got a lot of you on the Super Text line telling us who are the absolute worst celebrities in Nashville. I'm going to avoid that just because, I'd rather talk about the best celebrities as opposed to the worst celebrities. You know what I'm saying? Wendy says, I've heard from multiple sources don't congregate in any major cities this year. Wendy, what sources? If you're listening to me, Wendy, right? So, and I understand the concern. There's always a concern on major holidays and during major events like New Year's Eve. One would expect that there is an even greater. Look, I'm not diminishing it, Wendy, but when I say I've heard from multiple sources, well, what sources? Wendy says top secret source, super duper. Wait a minute, are they super duper top secret sources or just top secret sources? Are these extra confidential super duper top secret sources? Look, if you're listening to me as a source, I would tell you not to congregate where a large gathering of people happen anytime, any day of the year and twice on Sundays, because I avoid them, because I don't like crowds. It's not that I have a fear of crowds. I am not crowdophobic. I just don't like them. They make me angry. I just want everyone to get out of my way so I can get to where I'm going. And I don't understand why they don't do that. Now, that said, I'll be at Nissan Stadium tomorrow for the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl, but I don't expect a big crowd there.
There'll be assigned seating there, though, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so it's not a full crowd. It's a little more organized.
You ever do a mosh pit?
No.
I did. I've done a mosh pit before, back in my younger days.
What show was it for?
It was, what's the thing with the guys with the skulls? I was not into it.
Just went with a friend or something? Or?
No, yeah, it was a couple of guys. This was in Augusta, Georgia. It was Bell Auditorium, and a mosh pit got cranked up. It was, I don't know. Bell would know. It's one of those, one of those types of things that they all sound the same.
That's where you mosh.
Yeah. 333 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. Talking New Year's Eve in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and for Brian Wilson, normally you hear me from noon until 3. Hope you listen every single day and twice on Sundays. I've said that twice now. I don't know why. I'm a little out of it, I have to admit.
It's the last Friday of the year.
It's the last Friday of the year. I'm
It's the
exhausted.
last Friday day of the year.
If you divvy up your energy levels, if you consider your energy level needs to be divided amongst all of the days of the year, I think I did my math wrong and I ran out of energy yesterday. And so I've got nothing for today. So I'll lean on you, 615-737-9986. I'd love to talk with you, really about anything on your mind. 1649 says, I really didn't expect a Bell Auditorium reference listening to a Nashville radio talk show host. Well, you got one, baby. Augusta, Georgia, Bell Auditorium. My first concert, and I don't know when I guess I could figure it out. I think I was 13. That feels about right. I was 13, so that would have been 1986. Motley Crue was the headliner. Poison opened for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like a really good concert.
It was all right. That was the concert. That was the first big concert that I went to.
And they moshed there?
They did not. I had a very adult thought at the age of 13, though. You know what my adult thought was? I don't think I like this. I'm not a concert guy. Anytime there's and this is just me, I don't begrudge people who love it. There are some people who feed off the energy of it. I get it. I feed off the energy of a big city. So if I go into a big city, I recognize that big cities are full of, garbage, and they're full of bad people, and there's homelessness, and all of those sorts of things go on in big cities. But if I go to downtown Chicago inside of the Loop, or if I go just off of Times Square in New York City, or if I go any big city that I've been to, I can feed off the energy of a big city. I can feel the buzz, and I can feel off the energy. Now, that doesn't mean that I like the crowds necessarily. I just like the city vibe, the city buzz. That's me. Some people hate it. Some people wouldn't go near a big city on a bet. For me, I don't care for places where large amounts of people congregate and gather, and I know that that's a normal thing for people, but some do. Some like it. Some love it. I don't care for it. So anything that I do, that involves a big crowd, it has to be an event that gives me mentally the ability to overcome the nature of the crowd.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Or I'm pleasing those around me. I mean, I will do certain things for my wife or friends or whatever that I wouldn't normally do because I know that they enjoy it and I want to be a part of that enjoyment of the festivities.
To make the memories that'll be attached to it with those people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go to and that has developed to me. I used to hate these folks. People that would leave events early annoyed me, but I've become those people.
What made you hate them?
I just didn't like the idea. I felt like they were disrespecting the event.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you're at a football game or you're at a concert and you see people leaving the football game or the concert early, I feel like you're disrespecting the people that are putting on the event. Now, at the age of 50, I mean the Tennessee Titans no disrespect when I get up with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and make my way to the pedestrian bridge.
Yeah, no, that's an understandable leave this season for sure.
Especially this season. Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously circumstances will change those events.
Yeah.
So if the Titans are, trying to get into the playoffs or whatever, then that's a different circumstance altogether. So Ron is in Hillsborough. He is next up on The Drive with Matt Murphy and for Brian Wilson. Hello, Ron. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm great. Couldn't be better. Thank you.
Well, good. Hey, listen, whenever you first come to Nashville, you had some pretty big shoes to fill. And my life don't revolve around 997, but I listen to it anytime a radio's on. And when you first come on, I wasn't so sure about you. And listening through you since you've been here, I have to say I have become probably a number one fan. You are who you are. And nobody don't like you, that's okay. You understand that. But I just want to tell you that I appreciate you, and I appreciate who you are as a person, as a radio person. And I've got you a box coming with a bunch of mustard seed necklaces that I make, and I will send you a few that you can hand out to your fellow workers there. And I just want to tell you thank you, and I appreciate you, everything you do for the radio station.
Ron, you are so kind to call with those fine words. I appreciate that. I appreciate you listening, and thank you so much. You don't have to do that for us, but I appreciate it, and I will I'll make sure that anything you send us finds a good home.
You're welcome, brother, and have a blessed day, and have a Merry Christmas, and I pray that your 2024 is much more than you ever could expect.
Well, God bless you. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that, Ron. You're very kind to say Happy New Year to you. I am me. I mean, you know, one thing that you learn, and it really is nothing more or less than this. We are truly a family, and one of the reasons that I felt blessed to be able to come into Nashville and become a part, I never wanted to assume that I would be accepted as a part of the SuperTalk 99.7 WTN family. And I understood in December of 2021, I found out that I was coming to Nashville, I want to say, it was in October. The great Phil Valentine passed away. It was either August or September. I don't know. I know many of you will. And then soon after, I began a series of conversations with Dan Mandis, the program director of SuperTalk, and now the morning show host of Nashville's Morning News. And we had a series of conversations, and ultimately, I was offered an opportunity to be a part of the team, which I obviously graciously accepted. And that was in October. But because I had to finish up duties in Birmingham, Alabama, I was also program director of a radio station in Birmingham, Alabama. There were several things that I needed to do to shore that up. And because of all of those things surrounding the move and the transfer, I didn't get up here on air until mid-December. It was December 13th. And I thought I understood the world that I was walking into, but I never wanted to presume or assume anything about the family of listeners and hosts that were on SuperTalk 99.7 WT. And it truly is special. I feel like we had created something quite special in Birmingham, Alabama as well. And I'm proud to note that many of my listeners in Birmingham remain listeners to this day. They listen via some of those online platforms that we talk about on a regular basis, whether it's internet streaming or whatever. And I think we had a family there, but it is truly a special, tight-knit family of listeners. And we're adding and subtracting from that family every day, hopefully adding more than we subtract, right? I mean, sadly, you know, we all have it coming, kid. I like to quote that from Unforgiven. So, I mean, over the years, you're going to lose folks. You're going to lose them to heaven. You're going to gain people as people move into the community and find a community platform. We are truly the electronic public square where individuals can come, listen to opinion, voice their opinion, talk about the news of the day, talk about things going on around you, and understand that you have plenty of like-minded people in that group with you. But like any large extended family, you're going to have favorites. You're going to have people that are maybe not your favorites. And we're going to have a healthy amount of disagreement, which we should have. It is what America is all about. One of the things that I don't like about how the world is turning, and more specifically, what I don't like about how America is turning. I think I'm right. I've had a statement that I've been making for the 24 or so years that I've been doing this job on radio. Years and years and years ago, and I forget exactly when, but I had a caller that called me and he was upset at me and he goes, "You know what your problem is? You always think you're right." And I laughed. It was one of the funnier things I've ever had said to me. Well, of course I think I'm right. Why would I say something or offer an opinion about something that I thought was wrong? And I think what the caller was ultimately saying is that I think you're wrong if you share a different opinion. Well, Maybe that's so, but over the years, I've learned to understand that we're all different. We're all unique. Everything is relative in terms of your life experience and the things that you've gone through in your lives and how you perceive others around you and how you perceive the world around you. And so a difference of opinion is what makes the world go round, and it is truly what makes America a special place on planet Earth. That we love freedom and liberty so much that we abide by the concept that people can live a life of their own choosing, even if they're living a life that you would never dream of, so long as they're not depriving others of their own ability to live a life of their choosing by denying them their own God-given rights through force or fraud. That's what America's all about. And I fear we're losing the ability to hear differences of opinion and to have robust debate about those differences. We are more siloed in terms of what we believe in, and we're more distant from other opinions than we've ever been. Now, that doesn't mean that I am not cocksure that my take on some of these issues is absolutely correct. And I'm happy to correct the facts when circumstances warrant doing so. But in 2024, make it a point to get to know people that might have a different life experience than your own. Make a point to talk to people that might have a different value system than you do, or that might think differently about the world around us than you do. It will open your eyes. One of the things that I think we have a difficult time understanding, because most of us here are conservatives, Republicans, or libertarians, and those are three different things. But there are plenty of liberals that listen to the show. There are plenty of Democrats that listen to the show, and that's all well and good, too. But for the most part, we are a largely conservative or libertarian listening audience. And I do believe that it behooves us to listen so as to understand, even if it's to understand the fallacy of the argument, even if it's to understand how wrong they are, understanding where they're coming from is incredibly important, because it gives us the ammunition that we need to formulate arguments to help them understand that they're wrong. To help them understand that they're wrong. And to get them on the right track when it comes to freedom and liberty and the concepts that initially formed the United States of America. In the meantime, Super Text line up and running, phone lines up and running, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. My internet's out over here on the laptop, so that's going to be great. I think we've got internet on the other side of things. Joe writes in. I've not read this, Joe, so I'm doing it raw. I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy, but I'm going to have to call BS one more time. We definitely like you here in Nashville, that's for sure, but you're still on the fence because of Georgia. Okay, that's fair enough. Now, we listeners get a break with Alabama beating Georgia and knocking them out of the top four, but then we were cursed with Alabama making it into the top four, so you're still on the fence. Now, if you can get Joan Jones to take over Dan Mandis. Whoa, where did that go? Take over Dan Mandis? Oh, no. Dan's a big boy. I don't think it would hurt his feelings to manage the radio station from behind the scenes. I love Dan Mandis. What are you talking about? We were doing so well, and then we knocked Dan. I used to do a thing annually on Talk 99.5 in Birmingham, Alabama called Report Card Day, where I gave the audience an opportunity. It was normally on a day like today, where not a lot going on in the news. It's a slow news cycle anyway. The week between Christmas and New Year's is the slowest news week of the year traditionally. And I don't like to lie to you. I'm not lying to you when I tell you that there's big-time breaking news happening somewhere around the globe or somewhere right here at home. I'm not lying to you then. So I feel like I would be lying to you if I tried to pretend that there was a lot of breaking news going on when there wasn't. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot to talk about. There is a lot to talk about, and that's my job, to relate some of those stories to you. But that said, on days where it was a slower news cycle, I used to do a thing called Report Card Day. And I would invite the listening audience to call in with their grades. Grade the morning show, grade the midday show, grade the Matt Murphy show, grade the drive, grade how we are doing our job. Tell us how we can do our jobs better. I eventually stopped doing report card day because it began to be obvious that it was completely self-serving. Because here's what would happen. And it makes sense, right? I would do report card day on my show. So I always got the best grades because why wouldn't I? It's my show and people are actually listening to my show. So invariably it would become, Matt, I love you. You get an A. Everybody else gets an F. Not that dramatic, but I think you get the idea.
No, that sounds about accurate.
6598 says, I love listening to Dan Mandis. He's my favorite. You're my second favorite. Signed, Mandandis.
I don't know.
Well, that sounds a little suspicious. 351, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When we return, there's some new rules and regulations coming up for your appliances. We'll tell you what that crackdown is expected to be in 2024 and beyond. And the biggest stories of 2023, that's still to come on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I know she has about an hour and a half drive home, does Joan, so I hope she's still listening when I tell her this. or when I relate this to you. By the way, it's Matt Murphy. It is The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, about 5 minutes until 4.
Oh, goodness. And I complain about my drive.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal for Joan.
Wow.
I think it's about an hour and a half. She lives in South Tennessee somewhere. I don't know. I don't know where along the southern borderline she is, but she's down there, like way south of Murfreesboro or something like that. One way or the other, considerable. Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Murfreesboro.
What is that like for you? What is that, 45 minutes?
Depends on when I'm coming in. Like early in the morning for Mandis' show, about 35 minutes. If I'm coming in for Chris's show, hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Your show is a little lighter. It's around 50 minutes. And then for Brian, it's probably the next lightest, around like back down towards 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Nothing like Jones, though. She's got it bad. But a lot of love coming in on the super text line for Joan Jones and the great job that she did. She comes to us from Washington, D.C., from WTOP. I think I've got that right. She was a competitor for a hot minute with Brian Wilson. Brian was doing morning radio at WMAL in Washington before coming to Nashville, Tennessee. And Joan was doing TOP as an all-news station. And so she comes to us from there. Thankfully, one of her children had a baby. And she now has a grandbaby. She's a grandmama with her husband, granddaddy, and they wanted to be closer to the grandchild. And so we are the beneficiaries of that. And I don't know that I don't believe she had ever done long format talk radio before this week. And I think she did an incredible job. I did not get to listen to all of it, but I listened to a good bit of it, and it was fabulous.
Yeah,
she lives in Coffee County, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, that's about an hour. Yeah, about an hour and a half, yeah. Whew.
It's a long trek down there.
Yeah.
So many of you are, she lives in Cookeville. Said it today on her show. Cookeville? I don't know. One way or the other, it's a fur piece. And one way or the other, I just want her to know that there's a lot of compliments coming in. I mean, you were great, Joan, and what a wonderful addition to the team. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. So the Biden administration has now revealed what they claimed would not happen, and that is new and different environmental regulations that would target multiple home and commercial appliances that will affect you, if not in 2024, in the years beyond. In an action that will impact millions of Americans, the Department of Energy is finalizing new energy efficiency standards for residential refrigerators and freezers. We've already heard about some of the new standards on stovetops, which would all but preclude your ability in some states, as these states heap on standards on top of the federal regulations. It would all but preclude your ability to have a gas stove, for goodness sake. Now, that's not come to full fruition as of yet from a federal perspective, but in a variety of states like California, they're all but eliminating the gas stove from popular use, except for certain areas, certain restaurants, and for the upper crust elites. Understand something. All of these rules and regulations that are being heaped on you, most of which are being heaped on you in the name of climate change or climate emissions or global warming, whatever they want to call it, climate emergency, climate catastrophe. Rules are for thee and not for me when it comes to these politicians, these elected officials. If we learned anything from COVID, it was you do as you are told, you wear the mask when you are told, and we'll do what the hell we want. As we're telling you that it's up to you to save other people's lives. Oh, don't get me started. Rules are for thee, but not for me. We're different. We're special. Hollywood elitists and political elitists run in the same circles when it comes to that. I'll talk more about that coming up in just a moment. Right now, it's news time on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The drive continues. No Brian Wilson, Matt in for Brian. Back in a moment.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. As Israel pushes deeper into Gaza in the battle against Hamas, there are growing concerns of the conflict widening. U.S. Central Command says the U.S. Navy shot down 10 attack drones and 5 missiles deployed by the Houthis in the southern Red Sea, targeting international shipping. ABC's Britt Clinton is in Tel Aviv.
Major shipping firms, including Mediterranean Shipping, Maersk, and oil giant BP, they've all said they're diverting vessels away from the Red Sea. So certainly the commercial implications of these attacks could be widespread.
The conflict in the Middle East leading to heightened security in the U.S. for the biggest New Year's Eve celebration in Times Square. ABC's Aaron Katursky has details.
Thousands of New York City police officers are getting ready to deploy for New Year's Eve. While there are no specific threats, the celebration comes during what the FBI and NYPD call a heightened threat environment caused by the war between Israel and Hamas. Demonstrators tried to disrupt other iconic holiday events in the city, the Thanksgiving parade and the tree lighting, and authorities are concerned they'll try again on New Year's Eve.
President Biden has condemned Russia's latest barrage of attacks across cities in Ukraine, and the president is urging Congress again to pass the additional military aid package for Ukraine. ABC's Justin Finch has more.
Officials reporting 6 major Ukrainian cities were struck, with targets hit or damaged in Kyiv, Odessa, and Lviv. The city of Dnipro also hit. Dozens reported injured at a shopping center there and at a maternity hospital. Ukraine's President Zelensky posting on social media that Ukraine will surely respond to what he calls Russia's terrorist strikes.
Communities along the Pacific coast cleaning up after a major storm packed with heavy rain and huge rogue waves slamming on shore. North Dakota's governor has issued a state of emergency there after an ice storm crippled much of the state. And New England, rain and snow are in the forecast heading into the holiday weekend. You're listening to ABC News.
Yes, indeed. It is The Drive. No Brian Wilson today or this week. Matt Murphy filling out the week for Brian. Thank you to Joan for spending some time with you from noon until 3, while I spend some time from 3 until 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's my episode 481, and they said it wouldn't last. This Friday, December 29, 2023, our last day, my last day, before we hail 2024 and beyond. Thank you for being with us. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. Would love to hear from you at any point during the proceedings. Always an available line and always available to text back and forth with you on the super text line at the same number. Several of you doing as much. We were talking about the extended Super Talk 99.7 WTN family moments ago, and someone asked about Des Dickerson. Des is still around. He was just really busy during the holidays. And another asked about Pamela Furr. My good friend, I call her the redheaded stranger because I don't see her very much nowadays. She is recovering from knee surgery, doing just fine. I texted with her just the other day, and Pamela said she's doing A-okay. Still, a road to recovery. I wouldn't say a long, but obviously if you've been through knee replacement surgery or know someone that has, it is a process, and she's going through that process, but she appreciates your well wishes and thanks you so much for those. 615-737-9986. Once again, the telephone number if you want to be a part of the show. I do this normally on Fridays during my portion of the broadcast day from noon until 3. Could not help myself one more time in 2023 to welcome you to this segment of the show. He is a legal correspondent, a fabulous legal mind. He is essentially my lawyer. But more importantly, he's my best friend and life consultant. It's Jay St. Clair. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday.
Good morning, Americans. It's Friday.
He thrills us with not only his knowledge of the great volunteer state of Tennessee, but also his knowledge of all things the law. And like I say, he's my life guy. He's my life consultant. His name is Jay St. Clair, and he joins us on the program on The Drive. Hello, Jay. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, buddy. I wonder how many people listening to this know where that song is from.
The one that's playing right now?
Yeah.
Well, let's just throw it out to the super text line and see how many people fill up the text line with. I think you'd be surprised. What do you think the age demarcation line would be?
Well, let me say I bet it's fewer than 50%, maybe fewer than 25%. And I don't want to get into people's ages, but if anybody that's under age 30 has no idea what that is.
Boy, man, they're coming in fast and furious, Jay. They're filling it up.
Yeah.
Oh, and people, this is awesome. People are giving their ages, too. That's so cool.
Oh, nice.
I'm 42. I'm 40. And 9014 said it was Mickey Spillane. I'm sorry, 9014. That's not correct.
Well, that gives me faith in the future of this country.
Most people are getting it. I've got one Alfred Hitchcock.
Uh-huh.
I got one 007. And I got one Mickey Spillane.
Yeah.
But other than that, everybody's knocking it out of the park, Jay. And man, there's a lot of people listening to this radio show. Makes me kind of nervous. You just opened up the floodgates. How's it going, Jay? You all right? How you doing?
You better, man. I'd be my dog.
How's Olivia? Uh-oh. I am sadly experiencing Jay, I'm experiencing a little bit of a technical snafu there. You back?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I got you. So, yeah, Olivia, she doing good?
No, she's fine. We had a little bit of a scare. She had a lump on her side of her abdomen, but we got it cut out and everything's fine. Everything's good. She's wide open.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, my goodness gracious. She keeps you young, buddy. Tell you that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as you sit on the front porch and throw the ball to the road.
Well, no, I throw it to the driveway, and then she keeps it in her mouth. My driveway sloped. And she patiently waits for somebody to come walking down the road. And when they get to the house next door, She gently drops it down, and it rolls out to the middle of the road.
I've seen it happen, and it's great. So imagine, let me just describe this. Imagine a gentle slope of a yard, a gentle slope of a driveway to the road. Jay lives in a lovely residential neighborhood just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, in a community called Vestavia Hills. And Olivia has learned. So there's a couple of things going on, and I'm fascinated by this, Jay, and I know you are too. She wants to play ball. It's it is a big time priority in her life.
Yep.
And she has learned that if she sees somebody coming down the road, if she times it just right, she can drop that ball, and that ball will roll all the way to their feet.
Yes. I call it fishing, man. She's out there fishing. And every once in a while, she'll catch a pedestrian. And it is funny.
But more often than not, doesn't she? She loses them. And then tell the story about, didn't your neighbor bring you a bucket full of tennis balls one day?
Yeah, there's a sewer opening, right out in front of my yard. And so, pretty frequently, the ball will find its way down that sewer opening. And it turns out the sewer comes out into the open across the street, in the backyard about across the street neighbors. And, every so often they'll collect up. They'll wait till it gets to a couple of dozen balls. And then just throw them in a basket and bring them to me.
That's pretty funny.
It's funny.
Jay, not to lose sight of the spirit of the holiday season, but we do need to talk a little about the law. And I am most curious, because we've not had a chance to talk in several weeks, your thoughts about recent developments involving former President Donald Trump and all the goings-on around this Colorado deal. Were you surprised that Maine, the Secretary of State of Maine, glommed onto this thing? I feel like they know where this is going, but they just want to jump in front of the parade to say that they did. That's what it feels like.
Right. Yeah, I can't say that I thought it would be Maine, but yes, I expected that there'd be some other state that did it. And, the odd thing about it, I think this is right. This is more your space than mine, but it's mostly the deep blue states, where Trump doesn't really have a chance of winning, most likely anyway. So they're just playing to their base is the way I analyze it politically. But I'd say this about the main thing. The more outrageous it is, I think the better it is for Trump, certainly legally. And I think it's probably true politically. But again, you'd know more about that than I would. But the procedure used in Colorado was bad. The procedure in Maine is just awful. I mean, there's many problems with what they're doing, and if we want to get into the weeds, we can. But one of them is just a due process claim that they're not giving Trump a fair process before finding him disqualified to run for president. And the more outrageous the process is, the better it is for Trump. And that's the way I view this situation in Maine. I told you a while back, and I saw you tweeted it. I appreciate you doing that. There was 0% chance that he was not going to be on the ballot in Colorado for the primary. Well, he's going to be on the ballot in Colorado for the primary. And I think pretty much everybody knows what the outcome of this is going to be, man. But I'm not a political person, but I guess somebody somewhere is calculating that this somehow helps get Biden reelected. I'm not smart enough to figure out how that works.
I don't even know if it goes that far, Jay. I think the anger and frustration, we talk a lot about Trump derangement syndrome.
Right.
And for a while, this goes back even to when you and I would sit in studio in Birmingham together before I got to Nashville. And we would laugh about it. And for the most part, it was just kind of a joke. That people didn't like Trump for whatever reason. He was plain spoken. He was kind of upsetting the apple cart in Washington, D.C. Folks didn't like that. Maybe he was hurting their gravy train on some level.
Yeah.
But I didn't really believe that people had lost their ability to rationally think things through. I think that's some of this going on. I don't think I don't know that the Secretary of State in Maine has the ability to understand that she doesn't have the authority to just unilaterally decide that Donald Trump is guilty of insurrection, which is something that she seems to think she has the ability to do.
Yeah, no, it's just absolutely amazing. And she not only thinks that she's the arbiter of whether he is an insurrectionist, but she also has the authority, her alone, just this Secretary of State, she alone has the authority to say that he cannot run for president in her state. That's just amazing. But again, I think it's so outrageous, man, that it makes it easier for a higher level court to reverse it.
Well, I want to ask you about that in just a moment, but I just reflecting on this belief that they have the ability to determine on their own. I said yesterday, and I'm curious from a legal perspective what you think about the analysis. So I strongly disagree with the Colorado Supreme Court, and I think that they kind of jumped due process in what they did. Because Donald Trump's folks never had an opportunity to offer a defense. They never had an opportunity to call witnesses or whatever, right? So, but at very least, they're a court. It's their job to offer decisions. It's not the Secretary of State's job to do what she did.
No, that's right. You said it just right. Although, the law in Maine's a little odd. Maybe there is some provision there that the Secretary of State is the first person to decide if somebody's not qualified or not, but not under the United States Constitution. She's the person that says, well, you didn't fill out the right paperwork.
Right.
Or you didn't pay the filing fee.
Right.
Or you don't live in the right district. Okay, I get, a Secretary of State doing those sort of ministerial tasks, but this is at a whole different level. And I don't think you're probably right, man. I don't think she had any self-awareness of that. Wait a minute, do I really have the power to apply the United States Constitution to a presidential election when I'm not even a federal employee? It's remarkable.
I want to set the specifics of this conversation aside for a moment, and I want you to tell the story that you've related to me many times to the broader audience about lawyers and how averse they are for declaratory statements. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I think I've only heard you talk about 100% chance of this or a 0% chance of that very, very few times in our 20-plus year friendship.
Yeah, I would say just one. Well, this is maybe the second time.
This is number 2, right?
This is only the second time. And here's the deal, man. Lawyers are very risk-averse people. We don't like to be wrong. We don't like to make mistakes. And you can say that about a lot of people, I suppose. But it's very strong in lawyers. And so we almost subconsciously will give advice that can't be proven wrong. Right? They'll never be proven wrong. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say somebody has a non-compete agreement. I get this question a lot. And a company is trying to hire them. And they call a lawyer and say, hey, if I hire this person, is this non-compete agreement going to be a problem? Right? Mm-hmm. Just asking for regular, ordinary advice.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing that can happen to that lawyer is if he says, no, trust me, this will not be a problem. And then it becomes a problem. That's a problem for the lawyer.
Right, because the next telephone call, if I'm the business that I'm making, is to you, right? If you told me that, and I would say, hey, buddy, you told me this wasn't going to be a problem.
And now it is, yeah. So that's why 99.9% of the time, man, when a lawyer gets asked that question, the answer is going to be, well, it could be. It could be. Or it depends, right? There's a running joke that lawyers will very often answer questions with it depends. Because, see, they can never be proven wrong.
Well, and it is also the reason that oftentimes the legal department at any big company is the Department of No, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, lawyers kill deals. Lawyers don't make deals. Lawyers kill them. But for the same reason, man. If I say no and you don't do it, then I can never be proven wrong.
Yeah, you can never. It's an interesting dynamic, and you and I have talked about this on the golf course before, right? If I want to do something, and there may be a little bit of risk involved or whatever as a business, and I go to Jay, my attorney for the business, and I say, Jay, should we do this? Jay said, nope, shouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it. It's too risky.
We can never prove that hurt me because it never happened.
Exactly. No, you got it. You got it exactly.
Right. So Jay gets to
go for it, man. Go for it. This is a great decision, and it blows up. Well, I can be proven wrong. That's my lawyers or the Department of No.
So, with that in mind, you did tell me that you looked at this case out of Colorado before the main thing came on it, right. And you saw what % chance of this passing constitutional muster?
Yeah, well, but here's why I was very confident in saying that there was 0% chance he was not going to be on the primary ballot, because the court, in their opinion, Matt, said if an appeal is taken, we are going to stay our order. It will not take effect until the Supreme Court rules on it. Well, I knew that there was going to be an appeal, and so that the stay was going to be in effect. And I knew that there wouldn't be a decision from the Supreme Court in time to take him back off the ballot for the primary. So, that one was kind of easy. But nobody in the mainstream press was smart enough to read the opinion and understand what it meant. That's why you pay me the big bucks, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're worth every penny, too. Jay St. Clair is with us, and he is not only my good friend, he's also my life consultant and legal correspondent, and you have an opportunity to ask Jay questions right now. Get your questions in at 615-737-9986. Any question regarding the law is fair game. Really, you can ask Jay anything. I'll relate it, whether it's legal in nature or auto racing or whatever it might be. Get them in here at 615-737-9986, and we'll ask some of those questions coming up in just a moment. It's 422. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The drive's in progress. If you have a question for a good attorney, Jay St. Clair, get him in here. 615-737-9986 as we wind down the week and wind down the year that was 2023. Speaking of winding down, this is a rather personal question for such a public platform, but I'm going to ask it anyway, Jay. Are you winding down in terms of Littler Mendelsohn?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think 2024 will bring in terms of your retirement possibilities? I'm curious.
I'm changing status, man. I'm going from full shareholder to what we call senior counsel, which means I don't have any budgeted hours. There's no marks I have to hit, and no salary. I just work by the hour. It's going to be great, and but I predict I'll work probably about 25% of full time. Probably be about 500 hours, but I'm going to work with just 4 clients, and they're 4 very good clients that I've been representing for over 30 years. We love each other, it goes both ways, and that way, I'm becoming kind of like you, man. I've gotten to where I don't suffer fools gladly. I have never known you to suffer fools gladly.
I have a hard time holding my tongue sometimes.
Including Paul DeMarco. Who was the guy that threatened when you finished the interview? I think it was off air. He threatened to take you outside and whip your butt.
Well, I had 2 of them, Jay. One was Dale Peterson, the cowboy hat wearing Dale Peterson, who was running. I want to say he was running for state auditor or some state position. This is a great story for those who've never heard it. This was a candidate for public office who was accused of stealing a big container of cashews
I forgot
out of Sam's Club. Yep. And he I think he stole he did it twice. The first time he claimed it was just a misunderstanding, and the second time they arrested him. And he came on my show thinking that it would be a friendly environment, and it got really, really testy, and he threatened to beat me up. And then one was a gubernatorial candidate. He was a Democrat running for governor. His name was Parker Griffin.
Oh, yeah.
And Parker was about 75 years old. At the time, I think I was about 40. And he told me that he wanted to take me outside. He said, I want you to walk outside with me, and when we get to the parking lot, I'm going to bleep, bleep your bleep, bleep. Yeah, he was very angry with me. Well, but no, this is good. And the reason I asked the question is it's a selfish reason, Jay, and that is because I want you to get that trailer and get up here to Tennessee, and let's go on some of these tracks that I hear about.
No, I'm totally with you. And also, I need to go up there in studio with you on Friday.
No question.
And so that's going to be a lot easier to do next year. But, yeah, so some of my best friends, they're doing these endurance races, like the 24 hours of lemons and that kind of stuff. And they're going to 10 races a year around the country, man. And that's really attractive to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to head in that direction, I think.
By the way, a lot of you have correctly answered the question that Jay's opening theme song is from Perry Mason, but only one, 4268, told us that the name of the song itself, and I didn't know this, Jay, do you know the actual name of the song?
Is it The Fishing Hole?
No, that's a different black and white flick. I do remember that one. Perry Mason, the theme song, according to 4268, is by Fred Steiner, and it is called Park Avenue Beat.
I never knew that.
Never knew that. Learn something new every day.
All
right.
So now we'll see how many folks know what TV show started with the song called The Fishing Hole.
Mm-hmm. I bet we'll get a lot of those correct answers as well. We got the smartest listening audience on planet Earth. Let's see. Are all of these folks for Jay Mason? Is everybody for Jay? Okay, very good. Don is in Kentucky with a question or a comment for our good man, Jay St. Clair. Hello, Don. How are you?
Pretty good.
What's on your mind, buddy?
Yeah, I'm a retired guy, and I did something bad, just a bookkeeping deal that got caught up in fraud. Didn't know it was going to be a fraud deal, but did, and served about a 12-month sentence.
Right.
And supposedly it's supposed to be expunged. I went to go get a gun from them. About a gun, they want me to sign all this paper. At the tail end, the last question is, did you ever serve more than 12 years in prison? And if I put yes, well, the gun people's not going to process my thing. So I'll go back home
12
and look
years
on
or 12 months?
12 months, and it was just barely over a year.
12 months. Okay, yeah, got it. Okay.
So if I check yes, well, they're not going to let me buy the gun. So I go do some investigation on my own, and I can't find anything on my record. I call one attorney, and she says, give me a few minutes, and she couldn't find nothing, but she says, you come on down here to Memphis and put about $500 deposit, and I'll do some research. What can I do to make sure that I'm okay? I can't say no, that'd be lying.
No, I wouldn't lie. So I want to be very clear. The question was, have you ever served more than 12 months?
Is that the question, Don, that was on the form?
Yes. And I think I did.
Yeah, and that 12 months, the reason I'm asking that, Don, is if it's more than 12 months, it's a felony. Did you serve more than 12 months?
I think I did.
Well, I think it's not going to be good enough.
Well, I got my voter's permit back, rights restored.
Well, that tells me you were probably not convicted of a felony. You need to go back and figure out exactly what you were convicted of and exactly how much time you served. Because here's the deal, Don. If you served exactly 12 months, you can answer that question no, because you did not serve more than 12 months. What the really answer is, was it a felony?
Yeah. So how do I find out? Number one, my attorney that I used to have a long time ago, this was back in the 80s, 1980s.
Boy, there ought to be a record somewhere, Don. I mean,
a record, but it may not be computerized. Do you remember what county it was in?
Yeah, Shelby.
Shelby County, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go down to the Shelby County. Tell them you want to see your case file. Tell them your name, your birth date, and social security number, and they should be able to show you that.
Go where now?
Go to the Shelby County Courthouse.
Shelby County Courthouse. Go to the clerk's office. The clerk's office at the Shelby County Courthouse, and tell them your name and that you want to see your record, and tell them why.
Yeah.
You know, that you're applying for a gun permit, and you just need to know exactly how much time you served.
Yeah, I live out in the country now, and I got a few coyotes around here. I'd like to get a gun, but if I'm not sure that I can have a gun, I ain't gonna have a gun. You know?
No. Don't lie to them. You got to follow the law. I think you're going to be okay. Right. I really think you're going to be okay. You just got to find out.
If it's more than 12 months,
well, then call me.
Okay.
If it's more than 12 months, call me. I'm on the internet.
And you can, Don, if you can find me, we can find Jay. And
right.
Exactly. Yeah, if that's the case, I love this advice. And Don, you're doing it. And thank you, Don, for the call. He's doing it the right way, Jay. He doesn't want to lie to these folks.
Well, it's not going to help him.
Right.
But Don, I can't help you. No lawyer can help you until we know exactly what you were convicted of and exactly how much time you served in jail.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this: if it was jail and not prison, it was probably less than 12 months.
Right.
And if it were prison, you would remember that it was prison. The difference in jail and prison is the difference between, I almost said Vanderbilt and
Come on, Jay. It's the holidays. It's the holidays. I'll say this.
Football and college football.
I'll say this. And Don, thank you for the call, and I love you, and I appreciate you. But I got to tell you, if I served that amount of time, I would remember how much time I served.
I could tell you to the
exactly how much time I served. And you asked Don, well, was it over 12 months? I'm not sure. Well, I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but I would remember. All right, Jay, hang in there. We've got Jay St. Clair on the line. We got a lot of folks asking questions. We have a lot of questions coming in on the Super Talk line, and I appreciate you, each and every one of you. We'll get to as many as possible. It's 4:34 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, winding our way to the end of the year, end of the week as well. Thank you for being with us. Jay St. Clair is with us. He's our legal correspondent, my life consultant. Jay, enough have answered the question, so I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit on this before we get back to calls and questions on the super text line. The fishing hole. Do you know who wrote the fishing hole? I did not know this until this moment.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. My Secretary of Homeland Security has noticed that the UPS truck's here. So if you hear a little noise in the background, just ignore that.
That's fine. That's all good. Do you know who wrote the fishing hole?
I don't.
It was Andy Griffith.
Really?
I didn't know that. He wrote the lyrics to the song.
Really?
I've been exactly about 28 seconds old since I learned that. I was looking up the lyrics because I did know most got the answer correctly, that the fishing hole was the theme song to the Andy Griffith Show. But most might not know that it has lyrics to it.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole.
Let's go to the fishing hole.
Yep. Andy Griffith wrote that song. I did not know that.
When I was in elementary school, the guy that whistles that tune came to my elementary school and put on a show.
Did he just whistle?
Oh, yeah, and it was great. He could whistle two tunes at the same time. He was I mean, that was.
Was this in Tennessee or was this in Huntsville?
It was in Huntsville. Yeah, it was over 50 years ago, man, and I still remember it. The first thing that came to my head, is that they didn't have a lot going on in Huntsville back then. That guy was great. He was a star. That'd be like Taylor Swift.
I think that is my favorite comparison of the entire day.
He could whistle 2 tunes at the same time, could he?
Yeah. It was great.
Well,
I bet you Taylor Swift can't do that.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to get into what Taylor Swift can and can't do because I don't know. It might go down a bad road. Let me talk to April, who is in Nashville, who has a question or a comment for our man Jay St. Clair. Hello, April. Good afternoon.
Hello.
What's on your mind?
I got a legal problem that I've been dealing with for about a week now. That I've done been to the police station, I've been to the courthouse, called the cops, and I can't get nothing resolved. I don't even know what can I do. It's
let's work on it, April. Tell me what's going on.
All right, my son's ex-girlfriend had him jumped, and they beat him up, took his car key, took a bunch of other stuff, but they took his car key. He just bought a 2007 Lexus. It ain't even a month old. It wasn't even tagged. It still had a drive-out tag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she stole it, and then her mama makes stuff all the time. She can make documents and all this stuff. She's real talented with that. Well, they took a forged copy of a bill of sale and put her name on there. It says name to Tommy Lee Morgan or Christiana Shell. But on the original one that we just went and got from the car dealership, it says for Tommy Lee K. Morgan because his middle name is Curtis.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to know what you can do?
Yeah.
First thing I would do is go to the local district attorney's office, tell them what happened. Sounds like you've talked to the police. But go there and tell them you want to swear out a warrant against them. And if you do that, they should let you swear out a warrant against them, and then you're kind of on your own as to what they do from there. Don't expect law enforcement to take a lot of interest in it, April. Right? That's your name, right, April?
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, and I would do this really at the same time, is you got to hire a lawyer. You could file it yourself, but it's for Lexus. It's probably worth it over $20,000, so it's more than General Sessions Court. And you can sue them.
Well, the Lexus he's bought was 2007, so he didn't pay so much for that one because it was at a used car lot.
Gotcha. Well, you could, if you wanted to, you could sue them in small claims court, and you wouldn't have to hire a lawyer to do that. It's not an easy process, but you can do that. What county do you live in?
Davison.
Okay. Well, what I do is go down to the General Sessions Court there in Davidson County and tell them that you want to file a lawsuit. And they should give you, normally the people in the clerk's office are very helpful, April, and they should give you the forms to fill out. Or you can go online probably. I bet you Davidson's got all the stuff online. And you can sue them in small claims court. That's your 2 legal remedies. I mean, the other thing you can do is hire a gangster and try to go get the car, but I'd recommend against that.
I would too.
I wouldn't go that route.
Yeah, we thought about it.
Well, you can. That's great advice, April. Let us know how everything turns out, and I appreciate the call this afternoon. Jay, I have a correction. I don't like to correct I don't like to be wrong.
I didn't think Andy Griffith wrote that song.
Well, what I looked up, it was the Fishing Hole lyrics, and it says song by Andy Griffith. And I think they're giving Andy credit because he sang the song.
Right.
But the author of the lyrics was a person by the name of Everett Sloan. And I have the name of the person that you claim was at your school in Huntsville, Alabama, a man by the name of...
I don't claim it. It's a fact.
Earl Hagen is this person's name.
Yes, Mr. Hagen.
Earl Hagen. And Jeff Ross wants me to tell you, is very emphatic on the super text line, wants me to tell you that Earl Hagen came to my elementary school in Ashland, Virginia when I was a kid, approximately 1974. Tell Jeff.
Wow. See, that's what you used to do. That's back when celebrities were. I bet you Taylor Swift hadn't been to anybody's elementary school her whole career. But that's what they used to be, people of the people.
Well, my version of that is Okefenokee Joe. And I don't know if anybody knows Okefenokee Joe, but we knew Okefenokee Joe in Georgia. Okie Finokie Joe was a guy that would come to your elementary school and bring snakes and like lizards, and he'd have an alligator or two, and then you all, hook up in the assembly hall or hook up in the gymnasium, and there's Okie Finokie Joe, and he'll pick people out of the audience, and he'll hand them snakes and put pythons on their backs, and Okie Finokie Joe. That was our version of Earl Hagen doing the old double whistle.
That's great. So this guy was in Virginia, And see, mine was more in the late 60s. So, Earl, he got around.
Oh, yeah. Earl composed the whistling component of the fishing hole and performed the whistling heard on the theme. The success, it says here, resulted in widespread demand in the United States for a commercial recording. In 1961, actor Everett Sloan wrote the lyrics for an expanded version of the theme, which was named The Fishing Hole. Television music scholar John Burlingame called the theme a classic of musical Americana, and it was performed, of course, by the great Andy Griffith. So there you go. Don is in Lebanon with a thought or a question for Jay St. Clair. Hello, Don. Good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing? I just something that I've always thought about. It's always bothered me because I was an avid Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan, and when he died in Daytona, I know there was a lot of controversy and speculation that the Simpsons straps broke or all that stuff, because the accident really does. He's hit that wall that hard before. Right. And I was just wondering if maybe Jay heard anything behind the scene, because I think on that caution before he wrecked, I think he loosened his seatbelts.
Don, you may be right. I have never heard what I would consider the definitive explanation for why that, you're right, sort of not in a really terrible looking accident was fatal. But the thing that I've heard that probably makes the most sense to me is they just weren't installed correctly. The belts didn't really fail, but they just weren't installed at the right angle. I know a lot about this because I'm fooling with the harness and belts in my car right now, and you got to get them at just the right angle. There's a lot of science to it, and as incredible as it may sound, they just didn't have them in the proper place in the car. That's what I've heard. I've seen pictures, and I didn't see any tears in the belts or any failure like that. And trust me on this. If that were the case, there would have been a huge lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. Don, thank you for the call. Oh, sorry, Don. I didn't mean to cut you off prematurely there, but I appreciate the call. It's a fascinating subject because Dale Sr. was obviously the most popular NASCAR driver and has been the most popular NASCAR driver really ever since. Is it? I think this is right that he was grandfathered in with the open face helmet too, wasn't he, Jay?
No, I don't think that open face helmet was required then, man. I don't think that came until later, and I think it came partly because of his death.
Right. I want to say, and I'll do my own research on this, but I want to say that at the time that any new driver that came to NASCAR had to wear closed-faced, but anybody that had been before they made the rule was allowed to continue using the open face.
Well, you may be exactly right about that.
But I believe that was also a contributing factor in the death of Dale Sr. too. The fact that he had that open face helmet when he made impact with the wall.
No, and then of course the whole the Hines deals came along. Safety has improved. So as tragic as that was, man, there's no telling how many lives or serious injuries have been saved because of that.
No question.
Because the focus that was put on racing safety after that was just incredible. Safer barriers. I mean, many things came from that just tragic event.
You wear the Hans, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go on without it. I mean, it's just because it's not expensive and it's very effective, and I wouldn't go on.
I mean, it's just the design is to avoid the ability for your neck to. Yep. For neck movement, basically, right?
Because what happens is most of the hits, the really bad hits, are front hits, right? And so your neck stands forward,
right?
And it's not just your neck; it's your brain. This is it sounds kind of odd, but when you move forward real quick, your brain actually hits the inside of your skull
Right.
at a very rapid rate, and you get a brain injury.
Right.
And so what this does is just prevent your head from moving far enough forward that the brain moves a little slower than the skull does, and so it catches up to the skull at 150 miles an hour.
Well, yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Adam Petty, they concluded that Adam Petty died as a result of exactly what you're talking about, the brain and the skull and the fluid and that kind of dynamic. As macabre as it is, but I mean, the safety improvements have been dramatic in the world of NASCAR and racing generally. It's 4:51, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm going to get to as many rapid-fire questions as I possibly can with Jay St. Clair in just a moment. Plus, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, our good friend from the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, Aaron Gulbranson, will be here with us. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you. Jay St. Clair is with us for a few additional moments. So many of you asking so many questions. We could spend the next 2 hours answering them, but we only have about 2 minutes. So let's find out what's on your mind. All right, Jay, let's do some rapid fire.
Yes, sir.
Can a company make a current hourly employee sign a non-compete? If they refuse to sign, can that employee be terminated, in other words?
Yeah, as the law stands right now, yes, they can do that. The federal government is thinking about changing that, but I'm assuming that person's in Tennessee. And yes, in Tennessee, that is legal.
All right. 9667 says, my employer posted a list of everyone who didn't take the flu shot in the break room for everyone to see. Is this not a HIPAA violation?
You know, it actually is not. There's a lot of misunderstanding about how broad HIPAA is. And HIPAA really only applies to information that's given to a medical care provider or that an employer learns from looking at health insurance records. So it depends on where the employer got that information, man. My guess is they probably didn't go look at the health insurance records. If they did, then yeah, that's a HIPAA violation. If they didn't, if it's just from what people reported, then that does not violate HIPAA.
But I would say this 9667, and it's Matt Murphy answering, not from a legal perspective. If I were you, I'd probably look for a new job because that just seems weird.
That's terrible policy. You don't want to work for a company that does that.
Can a convicted felon with an expungement get their gun rights restored?
You know, that is a state-by-state question. I'm guessing that question is coming from Tennessee.
It is.
And the honest answer to that is I don't know, man. That's a very particular question that I just don't know off the top of my head. But I'll come the next time we are together on the radio, I'll have the answer to that question.
And then two more here. Well, there's a lot more, but this one's fun. Jay, I'm just curious to get your opinion on this. Jay, is a hot dog a sandwich? This was from 5762. This was a question asked of you by a listener. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, it's a hot dog. Well, it's a wiener. It's a wiener, but it's not a sandwich. A sandwich, no, that's not a sandwich by definition. It's a wiener.
And this is completely unrelated from a different person, I think. Is cake bread?
Ooh, I kind of like that idea. I think well, was it Marie Antoinette that said, let them eat cake?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think she was thinking that's just sort of highfalutin bread.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say yes.
Well, with that, we shall leave it. I apologize if I did not get to your questions. A lot of them rolling in. Jay, we got to get you up here, my friend. Have a wonderful new year. You know how much we love you. You know how much you mean to me. And we'll talk to you again in 2024, buddy.
Love you, brother.
Take care. There's Jay St. Clair. Great hour. Aaron Gulbranson coming up with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. He'll talk to us about what's going on in 2024 in the General Assembly. That's next.
I'm Chuck Severson. Vetoing a transgender bill, saying he talked with a number of experts on both sides of the issue.
Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine vetoing that bill that would have banned transgender minors from receiving any gender-affirming care before the age of 18 and prevented transgender girls from taking part in girls' sports. DeWine says those are decisions that are personal between family and doctor.
These are gut-wrenching decisions that should be made by parents. and should be informed by teams of doctors who are advising them.
The Ohio legislature could still override that veto with a 60% vote. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
More people reported getting sick.
The CDC says 13 states are experiencing very high levels of respiratory illness as millions nationwide suffer coughs, sore throats, and fevers that have them seeking treatment at doctors' offices. Some 73,000 people have been admitted to hospitals as a result of the flu this season. The CDC says 4,500 have died from influenza so far this year.
ABC's Stephen Portnoy. Another ceasefire proposal in the works between Israel and Hamas, put together by Egypt. As the war nears the 3-month mark, President Biden has bypassed Congress to send more military aid to Israel. U.S. Central Command says the U.S. Navy shot down 10 attack drones and 5 missiles deployed by Houthi rebels in the southern Red Sea, targeting international shipping. The Trump campaign says it is appealing Maine's 14th Amendment ruling, disqualifying the former president from appearing on the state's primary ballot. State officials says it's because of his alleged role in the January 6th insurrection. Mr. Trump denies wrongdoing. The last closing bell of the New York Stock Exchange for the year, and one which leaves many investors happy. The major indexes closed lower for the day, but higher for another week, and the S&P 500 ended 2023 with a 24.2% gain for the year. The Dow rose more than 13%. The Nasdaq soared 43%. You're listening to ABC News.
Give the star in your life the brightest gift in the world. Name a star after them. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can name a star for birthdays, weddings, or even memorials. Over 45 years, we have named millions of stars for celebrities and individuals from around the world. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
Start the new year off with a bang of big savings during the Omaha Steaks end-of-season event. You can stock up on all your favorites and get 50% off site-wide. That's 50% off perfectly aged tender steaks, juicy burgers, decadent desserts, and even classic comfort meals. Go to omahasteaks.com, and when you use code QUALITY at checkout, you'll get an extra $30 off your order. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code QUALITY at checkout for an extra $30 off your order. Minimum purchase may apply.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is The Drive. Normally, Brian Wilson in this slot until 7 o'clock. He's taking the week off. He'll be back Tuesday for another edition of The Drive with Brian Wilson. Until then, it's me, it's you, and it's special guests as well. We'll get into those in just a moment. It's my episode 481 of the proceedings. It's our final day of the week, and it's my final day of 2023, leading on into 2024. Happy to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number, 737-WWT. And it's always a pleasure to be joined by Aaron Gulbranson as well. He is with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, and I'm pleased to tell you that one of the first folks that I met when I first came into Nashville, Tennessee was Aaron, and he was always so gracious with me with his time, and I always appreciate everything he does for the people of the state of Tennessee through his organization with the General Assembly and otherwise, and it's a pleasure to have him in.
Always good to see you.
What's going on?
Oh, it's the end of the year. I think all of our mental bandwidth is gone, and we're getting ready for 2024.
I announced to Aaron that I had apparently a certain allotment of mental energy for 2023, and I misappropriated it, and I have run out. So I'm spent.
Hey, it's still more than the Secretary of State of Maine has. So,
I said yesterday, and I was talking to my friend Jay about it earlier in the show, that even as I completely and totally disagree with the decision-making on the part of the Colorado Supreme Court, at very least, I understand the structure, right?
Yeah.
There was a question before the court. The court made a decision. The court wrote out their decision. Do I believe Trump got due process? No. Do I believe it will be overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court? Yes. But I understand why they thought that it was important for them to do something on it. This Maine Secretary of State thing is like, where does she get off thinking that she gets to decide what is and is not insurrection without so much as a court proceeding?
Well, and I was listening to the show on the way over, and I heard what Jay was saying, and I'm only half an attorney, which means only half of what attorneys say goes over my head. But I agree. The Secretary of State's kind of like, the clerical thing in that in this case, when did you fill the paperwork out? Did you get the right amount of petitions? They're not the judge, jury, and executioner as to whether or not she thinks that Donald Trump committed an insurrection. And it's worth pointing out, and it's been pointed out ad nauseum, not a single person related to January 6th was ever charged with insurrection. Now, there was the Chuck Schumer comment about the election insurrection, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Which happened a couple of weeks ago in reality in a U.S. Senate. See, it's the end of the year. We're having a little fun in a U.S. Senate hearing room. But anyway. That's an exact quote from Chuck Schumer, unless you thought I was being lewd without any cause.
No. That was Senator Chuck Schumer being lewd.
Exactly.
You're just repeating the lewdness.
Yes.
But all of this serves to embolden the popularity of Donald Trump. This is feeding the beast, if you will, that is Donald Trump in 2024, in my opinion.
Oh, I think it's right. And I think it's also worth noting that you don't have a single Secretary of State or Supreme Court yet, with the caveat that has, the two states that have attempted to kick him off the ballot are states that he can't win anyway. He's not going to win Colorado. He's not going to win Maine. So,
well, and he'll appear on the ballots, right? Even Colorado accepted the idea that up until the point that the United States Supreme Court agrees with them, which will never happen, by the way, or declines to hear the appeal, which I don't think will happen either. And I think it's less likely to happen now that Maine's joined in on it. And you've got conflicting results, right? You've got Michigan deciding not to. You've got several other states deciding not to. And you have two states deciding to go this route. So the Supreme Court's going to clearly
if it winds up, I don't think there's a question in my mind as to whether or not the Supreme Court makes sure that he's on the ballot based on a few things, one of which being the fact that he hasn't been convicted of a crime. He may at some point, but it's up for Congress to decide whether or not he's able to serve as president after that, right? It is not constitutional whatsoever to just exclude him from the ballot.
Well, and one of the points that I made on the Colorado decision, and it bears repeating, is that even if you believe, and I don't know that there's been any court to consider the question whether or not Trump was, or he's not been charged with insurrection.
Right.
So courts have not considered this question. But even if you believe that he is guilty of insurrection, according to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, he still is fit to be on the ballot.
Right.
Section 3 says that he cannot serve.
Right.
And it doesn't even mention president. I mean, it mentions everything, but it uses some language that says officer of the state,
right?
Which some have, said that, carried forward. That means the president as well. But they mention senator, they mention representative, they don't mention president, and they certainly don't say that they're not qualified to be on the ballot,
right?
And so I would argue that even if he was guilty of insurrection, if the Republicans are foolish enough to put him on the ballot after the fact, well, then so be it.
Right. I mean, and of course, I think the public is, I mean, there's not a single case that's been filed against him at this point in time, in my personal opinion, that carries any weight of water anyway. They're all political prosecutions. This is turning into, we're saying it too much, but it is turning into the Democrats' attempt to turn us into a banana republic. I mean, you're literally prosecuting your political enemy. I would put the Maine Secretary of State in a very similar category to Fani Willis in Georgia, which is you just try to make headlines on a case you're not going to win, that in the grand scheme of things is going to be a massive waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah, I think Shenna Bellows, who is the Maine Secretary of State, I think she knows where all of this is going.
Yeah.
But she also knows that she can make a name for herself by doing this. I mean, I just looked up over your shoulder, and right now she's sitting on CNN. She's getting national media exposure to a willing and compliant audience on #NeverCNN, and so she is a winner in her own mind in this, despite the fact that there's no shot of her 54-page decision. And that was the thing. She called it a decision, and it bothered me more than anything. It was like secretaries of states make decisions in their day-to-day duties, but they don't write decisions along the lines of a court.
Right, or an attorney general giving an opinion.
Right,
that has legally binding.
Even with the attorney general, we don't call them decisions.
Right.
We call them opinions.
Right.
Now, the attorney general's opinion is going to have a hell of a lot of weight because they are, after all, the attorney general.
Right.
But they're still called opinions.
Well, I do find it ironic because if you're looking at CNN right now, which as Matt likes to say, he does so you don't have to, looks like Wolf Blitzer's on vacation. So this big announcement that she's made, while it's generating a lot of press, she doesn't even get the real host of the Wolf Blitzer show on CNN. You should have, 2 weeks ago.
Caitlin Collins apparently pulling triple or quadruple duty. I mean, Caitlin Collins, who is slowly but surely looking more and more every day like Jim Acosta. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Look at her. Does she not look like Jim Acosta?
And they go to the same beauty parlor.
I think they do. I think they go to the same hairdresser.
They wear the same eyeliner.
The other big story that is a little bit of breaking news, and I mentioned earlier in the show, I don't like to tell you there's a lot of news if there's not a lot of news. I like to be honest with you, but this is breaking nationally. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine went against his own Republican Party today and vetoed a piece of legislation that would have banned gender-affirming treatment. That's what it's being called in this article. I would say that it's gender reassignment is what I would say. Some would call it gender mutilation, and that's perfectly acceptable with me too. This whole concept of gender affirming is nonsense. It's softening the language for the purpose of not helping you understand exactly what's going on. Anyway, he vetoed a legislative piece that would have banned these treatments for minors and kept transgender athletes out of women's sports. That is your Republican governor of Ohio. What do you say, Aaron?
Well, very often I feel like the term rhino is overused, and generally the people that use it are not even Republicans, for one, or B, understand what the heck it means. But in this particular case, if you are a Republican and you're not a governor of Ohio, like DeWine is, and you're not signing a bill that actually protects children, then I think you can be branded a rhino. But, it's very interesting, by the way. The term gender-affirming care drives me nuts because it is not a neutral term. It's actually a biased term in favor of what I would refer to as child mutilation. There's got to be some sort of term that they could use that could at least be somewhat neutral. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Gender reassignment surgery.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, you can get, the Z's and the Zers and all the non-binary whack jobs that are just that's biased too.
I think on one side you have this language, gender-affirming care, which is nonsense. I think that the term gender mutilation is intentionally incendiary. I don't mind it because I think we should face what they're actually doing to the young people that they're doing it to. So I don't mind it, but some could rightly call that inflammatory language. And I think somewhere in the middle is this idea of gender reassignment.
Right.
It is taking one's gender and turning it into something that it's not. I am fascinated how the Ohio governor justified his decision to veto this, saying, well, it's up to a family. It's their own individual decision-making. I don't know that he directly reflected on the sports component of all of this, but to me, I would think, well, what about the families who are dramatically affected by the lack of legislation here? What about the women? What about the Riley Gaines of the world as these young girls come up and they are forced to regularly compete against men who are biologically different than women?
Right. And, of course, you see what happens in mixed martial arts and all those sorts of things. Which, by the way, Riley Gaines' Twitter feed right now is both accurate, in my opinion, on this topic, but highly entertaining because she has ripped DeWine a new one. Now, this is a perfect example, too, of why Tennessee is such a great state to live in, because we have leadership here, both with, Jack Johnson and colleagues in the Senate like Farrell Hale, and then in the House with William Lamberth and Jason Zachary, and then Governor Lee enthusiastically signing this legislation here, SB1, HB1, and then also enthusiastically defending it in court with our Attorney General. All parties working together to save children in the state of Tennessee.
Well, there will come, and I agree with the concept that was first offered by Taylor Silverman, who Riley retweeted on this matter, that there will come a time in our future history where people like Mike DeWine will run away from what they've done to hurt children. They will attempt to claim that they never supported the abuse and ultimately the mutilation of children, because we have yet to see the dam burst on this, but it's coming. It will take a few years. We've seen some, Chloe Cole is a good example of it. There are other examples of individuals who were led down this path as children, and they recognize the era of that path as adults, and you cannot put that toothpaste back in the tube. And that's the entire point, is while people like Aaron and myself are sensitive to young people who are genuinely going through some form of gender dysphoria, the point is you can't erase it once you do it.
Right.
And what is the harm in getting people the social or mental help that they need as youngsters and waiting until they are grown to make certain decisions that only grown people should be making about their bodies?
And listen, whatever you think on the subject, the safest course of action is to prevent this kind of mutilation, or whatever word you want to use, from happening to children. Let them make whatever decision they feel like making when they're a legal adult, regardless of whether you or I disagree with that. They would be an adult at that point, and if they want to indulge whatever illness that they have or just be stupid, from my position, they can certainly do that as adults. But I do think that politicians in this particular case, and I think, and I don't like to put things this harshly all the time, but I think this is a particular case where God will judge Governor DeWine pretty darn harshly, because I think when you look at him completely abdicating his responsibility for protecting children from being mutilated, to me, it's a very similar situation where if you turn a blind eye to human trafficking. These are situations where people can get hurt. One of the reasons why the suicide rate is high amongst that group of people is you're putting untested hormones and all these other kinds of medication in a child that is not fully developed body. It makes them go crazy. There are other things. We already have a medication-driven culture where people are giving ADD medication that probably shouldn't have gone anywhere near it, and this has been going on for a long time. This is just the latest example of the callous nature that our society is being developed towards kids. And for me, I think everything that I stand for and everything that the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition stands for is we want to do everything we can to protect children. And, again, I'll contrast Tennessee to Ohio right now. Tennessee's better.
Scott asks a question. Scott, I'll endeavor the answer for you in just a moment. I'll try to find it. He wants to know if the Ohio legislature has the votes to override the veto. In some states, I don't know if Tennessee is this way, but I know in Alabama, it takes the same vote of the legislature to override a governor's veto in Alabama. And in other words, you don't have to have a supermajority in Alabama. It's a little quirk in the law, but it leads to pocket vetoes quite a bit in the state of Alabama if the governor chooses to go against the wishes of the legislative process, because it takes the same vote to override that it did to pass the legislation to begin with. I don't know if Ohio's that way. If that's the case, one would assume that there would be a vote to override.
I don't know what the threshold is, but I did remember reading a tweet by Riley Gaines where she said the votes to override were there. So I don't know if it's a simple majority or 2/3, but according to Riley Gaines, they're going to.
I trust her, and if the votes are there, let's hope that they choose to do that.
That is definitely the area of public policy I would trust her opinion on, certainly.
There's no question. It is 5:21. Aaron Gulbranson is with us from the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. We'll ask him about their efforts, the part of the coalition efforts to protect youngsters from child and human trafficking in the state of Tennessee, and what more is to come in the 2024 General Assembly. We'll do that next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Hello. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm in for Brian Wilson on the drive. It's 5:24. I feel like it's confession time at the end of 2023. Aaron Gulbranson is with us of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. By the way, I'm going to confess something. I love the Cars for Kids commercial, and I don't know why people detest it so much. I think it's great. And I'm not kidding. I sing along with it when I hear it in the car. What about you there, Mason? You like that commercial? Don't tell me you've never heard it.
No, I have heard it a number of times.
Just a few times?
Just a couple times.
Once or twice?
Yeah.
What about you, Aaron? You know the Cars for Kids commercial? You want me to? Yeah, there you go.
1877 Cars for Kids. Yeah. It's better than the latest Burger King commercial. I'll give it that. So there you go. You know.
What, the BK? Yeah. You don't like the BK commercial?
Nah,
it's kind of an earworm. Sticks right in here.
It's one of those things that's going to get stuck in your head. Yeah, 100%.
You mentioned something a minute ago, and I want to circle back to this because we were talking about the decision on the part of Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, to veto a piece of legislation signed by passed by the Republican-led legislature in Ohio. that would prevent transgender surgery on minor children and would prevent biological males from participating in female sports. Seems like pretty good conservative common sense, but, it's Mike DeWine, and I don't know that Mike DeWine is any conservative. I would agree with you. I think the term rhino is thrown around a little too much, but if it applies to anybody, it applies to DeWine.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that here in the state of Tennessee, we had the wherewithal, certainly in the aftermath of some of the sleuthing done by Matt Walsh, and kudos to him. He got to the bottom of some videos that were being thrown around at Vanderbilt Medical Center involving transgender surgeries on Tennessee youth. And more was done this last legislative session to reassert Tennessee's belief that none of these surgeries should be engaged in on youngsters under the age of majority. But there are some, specifically Chris Spencer, who is running a primary campaign against Farrell Hale. You mentioned Farrell Hale, and I don't know Farrell. I'm going to have him on the show in 2024. I look forward to that conversation. But you do know him, and Spencer is accusing him of being soft on this issue, and I've done a little bit of research on it, and I feel like maybe that's a mischaracterization of what happened several years ago.
Well, my understanding, for one, let's talk about what I've seen Farrell do directly. So very, very strong supporter of SB1, which is the anti-child mutilation law, right? Worked directly with Farrell as a one of the prime co-sponsors on our anti-child trafficking legislation that we passed during special session. He is the preeminent legislator who has, you're familiar with the safe baby courts and basically promotion of adoption, that sort of thing, keeping kids safe during that, so it's not just happening willy-nilly. So I think based on what I have seen, that Farrell's legacy is the protection of children. I don't understand why anybody would. Listen, campaigns are campaigns, and mud gets thrown around. In the old days when I was running campaigns, you at least had to have a scintilla of truth when you were whacking on somebody, and now people just make things up. So my judgment on the attack that I've seen that Farrell was for giving underage kids hormones or something like that is a pile of garbage.
Well, there's the mischaracterization, and I think I am comfortable in characterizing it this way. And I met Chris Spencer. He came on the show. Seems like a nice guy. I don't know him, and I don't know Farrell. So I really don't have a dog in this fight, except to say this. I believe in truth, and I want the truth to get to the people who are ultimately going to decide the matter in the primary. So the assertion was made to me that Farrell voted for a bill that would allow transgender surgeries, as if they weren't allowed before, and then because of legislation that he sponsored in the state, they're allowed now.
Right.
And that struck me as wrong. It just felt wrong that there would not have been more of a hue and cry if that was the purpose of the legislation. And so thanks to some sleuthing and some friends who helped me along the way, you come to find out that the bill that was passed originally, sponsored by Farrell Hale, Mark Pody, and others, would have prevented certain transgender surgeries, and I think it was capped at the age of 9 or 10 or something like this. Point being is this. It went toward stopping these surgeries. Now, if you want to be critical and say it didn't go far enough, that's fine. That's fair. But to characterize it as something that it's not, I think is an unfair character assassination attempt.
Yeah, and I think the way it was phrased to me, because I did briefly meet Chris Spencer, was that Farrell was like basically handing out hormones to kids. I mean, it was that kind of, and which is obviously not the case. It's also a bit disingenuous. I mean, I think everybody in the state of Tennessee who knows who Senator Pody is, he was a prime co-sponsor of this legislation in question, SB 0126. Nobody calls Mark Pody anti-children. So if you're accusing Senator Hale in this case of that, then you've got to accuse Pody and Stevens, and I'm looking at a whole list of people who were co-sponsors, not to mention everybody that voted for it. Deborah Moody, who was one of the greatest advocates for children in the state.
I think every Republican in the Senate voted for it, I think.
So, I think maybe with the exception of Janice Bowling, but I think Janice votes against everything.
Well, maybe so. But the point is this, that if you want to criticize certain senators, Farrell Hale included, for not fully understanding the depths at which some medical universities would go to attempt to get this type of quote unquote therapy or treatment to minors, then fine. That's fair enough. I understand. Hindsight's always 20/20 on these matters. The point is that it was a step in the right direction, and it was being in my opinion, it was being mischaracterized to me at the time that we were talking as a step in the opposite direction.
Right. And instead of incrementalism and a good step, and then the final step was SB1, which of course Farrell supported as well, and Jack Johnson and William Lambert spearheaded.
Which frankly, and I've been around the block enough to understand this, that you kind of cut off your nose to spite your face when you do this, because you could have a friend in Matt Murphy if you come to Matt Murphy and say, hey, this guy did this, I'm running against him because he didn't see the forest for the trees or whatever. He didn't go far enough. That's one thing. To mischaracterize something that happened in a way that I would almost call it intentional, maybe it's not, and I don't know Chris enough to say that, but that's where you kind of lose me.
I think you're right. I think they're. I mean, my read of it is you look at the bill and you hear the message being said about it. It's deliberately misleading the public. On the other side, it also to me shows a lack of understanding or care for how the legislative process works. So what I mean by that is, I got 6 to 8, possibly more than that, bills addressing child and human trafficking that we're going to be presenting in a few weeks. Right? We're working with members of the General Assembly. It's as if so. But I didn't get all those passed last year. I didn't get all those passed during the special session. Should I be ticked off and infuriated and accuse people of things because I didn't do everything all at once? That's what happens when you have a body of 33 and 99 people. You can't dictate to the rest of the world or the state or the legislature or the governor about what you want to wave a magic wand and get accomplished in that moment in time.
Speaking of getting things accomplished, we will circle back and talk about some accomplishments from 2023 and what you expect to accomplish in the General Assembly or what you will want to see accomplished in 2024. It's 5:33 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. Super Talk 99.7 WT, and it's 5:37. It is December 29, 2023. We are fast winding down this year. Did this year go by extraordinary? I mean, I understand I'm 50 years old, and they say that when you reach 50 years old, you wouldn't know anything about this, Go Branson, that the days are long and the years are short. I think that's the old phrase.
Wait, you know,
but 2023 was it not like that? Did it not feel that way to anyone else?
The year before a presidential election is always very, very short. And the year of the presidential election is one of those things that feels like it's 10 years and then you blink and it's over.
You know, I mentioned this the other day on my show that you're right. A presidential contest nowadays, it's like, oh, that's forever from now. That's way out there. And then before you know it, boom, it'll be on us. And it struck me when I was talking about this how annoyed I remain for a lot of reasons. Number 127 with the Nashville Metro Council, the fact that we should be gearing up for the Republican National Convention in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, instead, all the lovely people running for delegate, as well as everybody who has to converge, will have to go to Wisconsin, of all bloody places, and Milwaukee. And yeah, no, they screwed Nashville out of a lot of revenue, the businesses in the area, and it is all that Marxist Metro Council.
And their reasoning behind it, you remember the reason that they gave? Security.
Yeah, security. And yeah, they tried to say that the MAGA supporters would go crazy. Meanwhile, I mean, have you been to a national convention before?
I have not.
I went in 2008 in Minnesota, which that was a treat. I bet you it would be about the same thing. I'm being sarcastic when I say treat, but
are you going? I'm going this year.
I'll be going. There'll be a number of activities that both Faith and Freedom, and then as well a number of friends of mine involved in high levels of some
holding down Radio Row, baby. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Oh heck, we can have some fun there, and then. Hey, you can introduce yourself to Wolf Blitzer and go, hey, listen, I got a large audience and I'm the only person watching your show. Well,
I'm Wolf Blitzer. See you on the news.
But no, I mean, anyway, the point being, I mean, in 2008, the big thing was, again, you know, Code Pink was causing massive problems and there was massive anti-war protests. And the head of Code Pink was arrested and various people, they bribed people for their delegate passes and that sort of thing to get in the building, and they were offering certain other things I'm not going to say on the air in exchange for those passes. But yeah, I mean, the riots and everything that are going to happen, or any kind of violence or any kind of broken glass, it's all going to be from the left, and everybody knows that. It's not going to be from the right.
No. Do you, a little bit closer to home and a little bit closer to events that are set to occur in the next couple of days, I have been admonished to be careful in crowds this New Year's Eve because of the nature of some of the conflicts that are going on around the globe and some of the protests that we're seeing at home. Does that concern you at all?
It should. I mean, look, it's almost like history. I'm really, really praying this doesn't happen. My worry is that some version of history repeats itself because you have seen a increase. I mean, look at New York City, it's Muslim violence. You look in other places, it's the same thing. Philadelphia, Chicago, Nashville has had that component to it where there's been marching in the streets. They haven't gone out and out like smashing cars or anything. You have the component of it where it's not, and again, it's not just Muslims. You have, and this is a quote, but you have self-described radical, queer, Marxist activists that are out there promoting this stuff, screaming, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is an abhorrent phrase. It means the extermination of Jews in
I've made
Israel.
Not to interrupt your train of thought. I've made the case, curious if you agree, that I do not see any difference. It is a complete overlay saying that you're pro-Palestinian and being pro-Hamas. I cannot distinguish the two positions.
It's in this day and age, there's no difference.
I mean, you can't tell me, oh, well, I don't agree with the tactics of Hamas and then start screaming about from the river to the sea, because that is a declaration of your desire to eradicate the Jewish population from that region.
That is correct. And actually, before I forget, State Senator Mark Pody has filed a wonderful resolution that I expect the General Assembly to vote on, decrying that phrase. And State Representative Chris Todd has also filed another resolution that's very similar to that. And I love both resolutions. But And then the General Assembly is going to express its support for our Jewish brothers and sisters, which everyone should do. But, you're right. There is no difference. There's absolutely no difference. You are calling for murder. You are calling for terrorism. There is no nuance here. There is no good side of from the river to the sea. There's just pure evil. And anything else is just trying to put lipstick on a pig.
Have you seen any positive action on the part of the city of Nashville to make sure that they manage these types of protest? So far, they've minded their manners to a certain degree in Nashville. We've not seen the type of lawlessness that we saw outside of O'Hare Airport in Chicago, like we saw outside of LaGuardia Airport in the last several days in New York City. But I fear that if you allow these things to happen in some of the major cities around the country, and I will actually give credit to New York City and I'll give credit to Chicago. They allowed this to happen for a few minutes, and then they said, y'all are about to get arrested if you don't get out of the streets. And they didn't get out of the streets, and they started arresting people to their credit.
Right, and they probably got out with cashless bail pretty quickly. But, I mean, I do think that the situation's somewhat better. I mean, based on observations in person as well as things that I've heard, it seems like the police are more prepared here than they have been in other places. Now, we are a smaller city. Now, I will say, and this is fairly public proclamations that they've made, but I think one of the reasons for that is various Jewish synagogues have raised holy heck with the city of Nashville, both the police department leadership, and have said, you better protect us, and which is as they should. So I think you've seen a little bit higher police presence. What's going to happen? Will Antifa get out of control as they do? I mean, they're the ones providing security for every single one of these pro-Hamas events that's going around in Nashville. So it's the question is I hate to put it this way, but when do the professional terrorists get involved? Right? Are they out there?
Well, and I think the reason that, and I try to walk, it's a fine line that you walk between recognizing when conditions are present for extreme violence or terrorism, and recognizing the terrorists' inclination to act on particular days and particular moments in history. You balance that against not wanting to scare the hell out of people, right?
Right.
But if you put together what's going on around the globe, especially in the Middle East, you see what's happening on our college campuses here at home, you see how a pro-Palestinian or pro-Palestine position has converted itself into a pro-Hamas or pro-terrorist position, and then you combine with all of those things the southern border, and it scares the hell out of me here.
Yep, and like I say about almost every statistic when it comes to the southern border, I mean, it's likely 10 times worse with both the potential for terrorism and all the other problems we talk about, including trafficking. We don't know. I mean, now what you can look at, it's almost like when you're looking at everything going on as a larger picture, it's almost like watching a poll, a political poll, and you can see what the trend is. The trend is not dissipating. The trend is not becoming more peaceful. They're inching or running, in certain cases, towards violence. So, yeah, I would be very, very cautious in those situations where you could have higher concentrations of those people, and certainly New Year's Eve is a day where that could happen.
Are you going out? Or is that
no? That's what
was that ever a part of your present?
No.
If it's a part of your past to now, was it ever part of your present to go out during events like that?
No. My big reckless thing that I like to go do once a year is go to WrestleMania. That's where I'm around 50 to 100,000 people. So,
yikes! And WrestleMania coming to Nashville, right?
That's the rumor, or basically stated in 2027. So they haven't made the official announcement, but I think the president of the Titans new stadium has said that. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. That should be fun.
I'll be in the same city as some sort of wrestling event next month.
Yeah.
I will not be attending said event.
And the Royal Rumble, one of the big four. Now, for those of you listening right now, you're about to find out what kind of a wrestling geek I am. No, it's actually...
It's the holidays. Yeah. Merry Christmas. Go ahead and give them this information.
No, it's actually a lot of fun, though, and you're missing out because it's a very unique wrestling event. They put 30 guys in a ring. Actually, and there's a separate Royal Rumble for the ladies. There's 30 ladies in a ring, and there's chaos. And it's just entertaining. There's surprises if you follow it. There's like people who used to wrestle that come back for a little bit.
Wait. So 30 people get in a ring. And what? The last person standing wins?
You get thrown over the top rope.
You're out.
And you're out. And so the last person, yeah. And then they get a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. That's what the whole purpose of the Royal Rumble is.
But I'm guessing there's a lot of shenanigans. There's a lot of cheating that goes on.
Yeah. I mean, zillion years ago, Vince McMahon hid under the ring for an hour and a half and then came out and knocked Stone Cold Steve Austin and won. And listen, and for those of you, because I'm sure this is on the super text line right now, going, oh, they're talking about fake wrestling. Well, you know what? I got news for you. It is predetermined. It is fun. It is entertainment. But Arnold Schwarzenegger was not really the Terminator, and Christian Bale was not really Batman. So this is just fun.
No, it's never bothered me that it is a scripted event. It's never bothered me. It's still very athletic, and I've always been mildly amused by it. Never so much so that I would be willing to participate in 150,000 people?
Now,
What?
WrestleMania is about 100,000, and then here it'll be. I mean, it's 2 nights, so WrestleMania at Dallas Cowboys Stadium is 100,000 at once, right? But here, what is it going to be? 55?
What do they charge? I mean, I'm just out of curiosity. What's the range in ticket prices for an event like that?
Oh gosh, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, you could sit on the moon for $50, or you could mortgage your house and get front row seats at WrestleMania for $30,000.
It's like any other event. Yeah. I mean, you could probably get in for fairly cheap, but then you can spend as much as you want.
If you want to go meet, what was Kiss charging, like $5,000 for a meet and greet when they just were in town in October? So I mean, it's capitalistic, right? It's whatever you want to spend on it.
9849 says it sounds a lot like the NFL. I think the suggestion by 9849 is the NFL is scripted too. Maybe, I don't know.
It could be. I mean,
All right, so in the time that we have left, let's talk about the new year in 2024. General Assembly meets. Do you believe that Cameron Sexton has the ability, as Speaker of the House, to maintain control in his body in a way, by his body, I mean, obviously, the body of the House of Representatives, in a way that he seemed not to have toward the end of the special session and certainly toward the end of the general session? I mean, and I feel for Cameron. I like Cameron a lot. And I don't know that I could have done any better. I don't know that anyone could have done any better given the dynamics of what he was dealing with. Are you fearful that the House is ripe for more of that in 2024?
Well, I think the Speaker and the rest of the leadership are in a catch-22 with those three, and a few more now with Afton Ben and blah blah blah. You have, listen, a good day for Justin Jones is to get negative attention. That is a good day for and Pearson and Gloria Johnson, or she's now referring to herself as GloJo.
Oh, she is not.
Yeah, she is. She's selling
GloJo.
She's selling T-shirts. GloJo.
I mean, she's going to get destroyed. I predicted the possibility of a 30-point loss. That would be pretty substantial. That'd be 65-35.
GloJo versus Marsha Blackburn.
Yes.
And which mind you is not a guarantee because Marquita Bradshaw might beat her. But let's just say it's GloJo. To you, since we were just talking about wrestling, I want to ask Gloria Johnson a question since we're having some fun here. What you gonna do, GloJo, when Marsha Blackburn and all the conservatives of the state of Tennessee run wild on you? What you gonna do, GloJo? Anyway.
Is it just me, though, of the three of them, Pearson seems to be, and I could be reading the tea leaves completely wrong, and I've never sat down with either of them, any of them, because they won't. I've invited all of them.
Right, they're cowards. They're afraid of you, Matt.
He seems...
Someone else is afraid to come on, too, but go on.
He seems more... but enough about humble. He seems more... reasonable. Pearson seems more reasonable than Jones. And I could be reading it wrong. Maybe it's just his MO.
I mean, I've been 5 feet away from Pearson. I've had Justin Jones curse me out in my face. So from that perspective, I would say that's right. I think that Justin Pearson is probably the only one of the three that's ever going to wind up in higher office, because Pearson could very well run for Cohen's seat and either take him out or whenever Cohen retires.
I would agree with that.
So he has the higher ceiling to take all passions out of it. But, that's sooner or later you put 3 snakes in a barrel and they're going to start eating each other too.
And I would also say this: to my knowledge, Justin Pearson has never been credibly accused of covering up sexual assault in the manner that Justin Jones has been. So
that is very true.
And if you don't know that story, I'm happy to relate the backstory to you. Before we go, what's the most important thing to come out of the General Assembly in 2024, in your opinion?
From my perspective, saving more children from child and human trafficking.
A good start in last year's special session, but more to be done.
We're going to gut it this year.
Good for you. Aaron, thank you. How can people find you online?
tnfaithfreedom.com, tnfaithfreedom.com, and at tnfaithfreedom on all social media.
Have a great new year. Thank you,
Happy
buddy.
New Year.
All right, we'll talk to you again in 2024. There's Aaron Goldbranson. We'll be back in a moment. We've got another hour to go on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The drive continues. Matt Murphy winding down the year. Is that it? Oh, wait.
It's a fake out.
Dramatic effect. It's 5:56. Would love to hear from you. We're going to open it up to your calls in the 6 o'clock hour. It is a 6 o'clock hour free-for-all. A First Amendment Freestyle Friday on the drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Would love to hear from you at 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. I broke a hard and fast rule moments ago. It is a personal rule. There is nothing preventing me from eating during the show. However, I have a personal pet peeve. When I listen to the radio, I can tell, I don't even know if it's a pet peeve, it's just an ability. I can listen to someone on the radio and I can tell when they've just eaten something. It's just a quality in their voice. So if you're riding down the road right now, if you're heading home, or maybe you're going to a holiday gathering or whatever, maybe a Friday night extravaganza with family and friends, and you're thinking to yourself, it sounds like Murphy's just eaten something. You're right. I did, because I can't help myself. You need to keep me away from those things. They're so good, Mason.
They are good.
They're little oyster crackers, and I know I mispronounce oyster all the time. Oyster crack. I put an H in oyster. Oyster crackers.
Oyster crackers
with I don't know. It's some sort of delicious brown sugary caramelly, I don't know, topping on them. Oh, they're so good. I'm addicted to them, and that's why you have a big bag of them, because I had to get them out of the house. And E thought you might want something because of your long shift today.
Yeah, tell her I said thank you.
And so for your troubles, I came in there and grabbed a handful of them, and then got caught. And I'm starting
caught with your hand in the cookie jar.
I mean, literally, because I was like, is that my song? Am I back? Yeah, you're back, technically. Okay, there you go. Lindsay is next up on the drive with no Brian Wilson. Matt in for Brian. Hey, Lindsay, how are you?
I'm doing well. And since I won't talk to you till next year, I wanted to say Happy New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year's Eve.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joan Jones had said that 12/31/23 on Sunday is 123 123.
That is correct. Yes.
Apparently, a bunch of people are getting married on it. Are you hinky about numbers like that?
It happens often on special numbered dates. I think we saw a good bit of this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that our own Brian Wilson was married on 10/10/20. I think that's right. He was married, I want to say, at, and if I am slightly wrong on this, I think it's only slightly, Lindsay. I want to say, and thank you for the call, the music in the background indicates that I've got to go for top of the hour news, and we've got another hour to go. But I want to say I'm right, that at 10:10 in the morning on 10/10/20, Brian Wilson was married to Cabana wife. And the rest, as they say, is history. We're history. Well, we got another hour to go before we're history. It's Super Talk 99.7 W10. Give us a call, 615-737-9986. Stand by.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. It's not the same as Main Street economic snapshots like the unemployment rate or inflation, but this one has many Americans smiling. The last closing bell of the New York Stock Exchange for the year, the major indexes closed lower for the day, but higher for another week. And for those folks with stock-based mutual funds, the S&P 500 closed with a 24.2% gain for the year. The Dow rose more than 13% this year. The Nasdaq soared 43%. Over 68 million American households, or more than half, own mutual funds, says the investment company Institute. Not all funds are all or partly stocks, though. A veto of a transgender bill. ABC's Andy Field.
Ohio Governor Mike DeWine breaking with his Republican Party and rejecting their bill that would have banned gender-affirming care for minors in his state, saying that's not a lawmaker's decision.
Where it is not only against the decision of the parents, but also against the medical judgment of the treating physician.
Still, Governor DeWine does want a rule that would prevent the actual gender-changing surgery to be banned until a child turns 18. Andy Field, ABC News.
Ohio's Republican majority lawmakers could try to override the veto. There are no specific threats to the Times Square New Year's Eve celebration, but thousands of police you'll see or won't see will be on duty, says New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
We want everyone to have a great time. We want everyone to follow the rules.
We want to make sure that we continue to move in the right direction. In this city, crime is down and jobs are up.
The mayor says they did adjust security plans because of the Israel-Hamas war. U.S. Central Command says the U.S. Navy shot down 10 attack drones and 5 missiles deployed by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea targeting international shipping. Trump campaign says it's appealing Maine's 14th Amendment rule disqualifying the former president from appearing on the state's primary ballot. You're listening to ABC News.
It is The Drive. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson, 6:03. Good evening. Hope you're doing well. We've one more hour to go. It is my episode 481 of these proceedings on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You can join us in a variety of ways. You can find us on your radio. You can find us on whatever platform you stream news or information or music from, whether it's like Spotify or iHeart or TuneIn, whatever it might be. You can actually download our own app. Go over to your app store and type in Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You'll see it right there. You hit the download button, and you can carry us wherever you go. Take us on whatever adventure you might be going on over the new year. You can also find us on Supertalk TV. We're up and running on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Find us at Supertalk TV by just typing in Supertalk 99.7 WTN on any of those platforms, and you get to see this ugly face and why I am on the radio and typically not on any other platform. Mason Fleming is behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. Mason, I have to say, and this is a compliment, you might not take it as such, but I have to say, you remind me a little of me. In as much as I used to work these holiday sessions where I'd go 18 hours a day, my friend, and you've pulled like triple duty today, buddy. Good for you.
For the audio listeners only, I am giving a very shaky thumbs up.
I can tell you're. I feel a little bad taking the Monster Energy drink out of the fridge.
I'll be fine. Yeah,
be all good.
I'm good. I'm going to grab one on the way home. We got plenty of energy.
What are you doing tonight? You doing something tonight?
Going to hang out with some friends after this. And then take a very, very long nap.
Like an all Saturday nap?
Yeah.
You a football guy?
Titans.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah, I root for the Titans normally. Seahawks are my backup team for NFL. Just because I got family from Washington, and they were all big Seahawks fans, so I kind of pulled it from them because Titans didn't always make it to the playoffs growing up.
Tell me about the game a couple of weekends ago. Were you rooting for the Titans when the Seahawks came to town?
I was rooting for them, but I knew who was going to win, so I was a little biased towards it. But it was a good game. I enjoyed it.
You know, I grew up in Georgia.
Yeah,
and I was an Atlanta Falcons fan, and a long-suffering Atlanta Falcons fan. And I announced as soon as I got to Tennessee that I was
switching over,
revoking my Falcons fandom and switching over to the Titans. But it took a season, right? I mean, and I'm not as big of an NFL fan as I am college.
Yeah.
But it took a minute, and I found my allegiances split. I mean, I followed the Titans, and I was all in on them But you can't just switch that overnight, right?
Oh, absolutely not. If you did, I would call you crazy.
But I realized that the switch was kind of complete when the Falcons came into town, and I was rooting wholeheartedly for the Titans against the Falcons. I was at that game.
How'd that make you feel? Was it a good feeling?
I felt good about it. I still feel good about it. I understand that the season has gone for the Titans, and I get it. But I think there are components that bode well for the future. You agree?
Oh, yeah. I feel like we have a way, with the way things are looking right now, we have a way to flip it around for next season to be a very good season.
The odd thing is, I don't know that Will Levis is a superstar or anything. I don't necessarily believe that, but I think he is well on his way to being an above-average NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he has the potential to step us up that next run.
Franchise guy, right?
Yeah.
And then you got Spears in the backfield. 32 is set to take over whatever happens to the King. Where are you at on that?
I am on where,
should they try to sign him for another year, Derrick Henry?
I would love to keep him, just because that would mean then we could put a combo with a decent quarterback that is going to step up hopefully this next season with a really good running back, and that would be a great combo. But also, if we could get some new blood in and do a full new team just to kind of give it a fresh start almost.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the big hope is that Derrick Henry wants enough to finish his career as a Tennessee Titan that he's willing to take a haircut on the salary. And
that would be great.
And I know that those are business decisions that's above my pay grade, but I don't know that you get a lot of value, the amount of value on the field that it would cost you in terms of his contract to sign him for another multi-year deal. What is he? He's 30 now? Something like that?
I think so. Let me pull it up real quick.
Anyway, so there's some sports on the News Talk station on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hope that your team wins, unless your team is the Florida State Seminoles, in which case I hope your team does not win. Lots to get into in the final hour. Your telephone calls, if you want to turn First Amendment Freestyle Friday into a real First Amendment Freestyle Friday, it's the way to do it by dialing us up at 615-737-9986. Let's finish up the year in the right fashion. Ohio is not. By the way, yes?
Fun fact I just learned, we have the same birthday. Derrick Henry and I.
Oh, no.
No, not you.
What's Derrick's birthday?
January 4th. He'll be 30 on January 4th.
Which is old for – is that not fascinating? How old are you?
I'm 25 right now.
Derrick Henry's 5 years older than you.
Yeah.
I consider you to be –
No, he's 4 years older than I am, because he's 29 right now. I'm 25 right now.
Okay.
On the 4th, I'll be 26. He'll be 30.
All right. 4 years older than you.
Yeah.
I think of you as a young buck. You're just beginning your professional career. Really, in earnest, right?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, in his professional career, is considered ancient. That's just weird. I mean, I get it. I understand the life cycle of a running back is a very short one, but
he has made so much money doing it.
He has a lot. Dare I suggest a little bit more than you have so far.
That's a pretty good hunch.
But you have a longer life cycle than he does, though, so you have plenty of time to catch up.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll accomplish that in this job, but
I have a prediction about that. I'll save it for off the air.
I'm looking forward to it.
I've learned over the years that people have a perception that radio folks make a lot more money than they think. I mean, people think that radio people make a lot more money than radio people actually do.
Yeah, I did a lot of research over the year that I've been here. In March, I'll be here for a year. And it's eye-opening, but I enjoy it. It's fun. I like being here. So it's kept me around for right now.
You know who makes all the big bucks? Dan Mandis. Anyway, 615-737-9986. The new breaking news of the day, Ohio's Republican Governor Mike DeWine announced earlier today that he vetoed a bill that would have banned medical practitioners from providing what is referred to by most media outlets as gender-affirming care. I will go ahead and call it gender mutilation surgeries, or at very least gender reassignment surgeries for transgender minors, saying that he believes gender-affirming care, his words, not mine, is a decision families should make, not government. And I'm open to be helped here. So should parents be allowed then to make a determination that their kids can drink alcohol? According to this Republican governor, is it acceptable that a family determines that it's okay for their 10-year-old child to get a tattoo, also known as a tattoo? Is it permissible in his estimation that a parent is allowed to make any and all decisions about body-altering substances that a child might be able to consume? What about cigarettes? An inherently dangerous yet legal product. Well, gender reassignment surgery is an inherently dangerous procedure, yet legal for adults. Why not for kids on the smoking side of things? Seriously. These are not rhetorical questions. These are earnest questions that I would like to hear an answer from the Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine. If this is a matter of a decision being made by the family and not government, then explain to me why government has any involvement whatsoever in a parental decision about a child's life when it comes to vaccinations. As another example, the governor said he arrived at his decision to veto House Bill 68, which is also called the SAFE Act. Politicians love to create these, what are they called? What are they? Oh, I always lose this. And not anagrams, anonyms, where the letters mean certain words and they spell out something, whatever. It's called the SAFE Act. After listening to physicians and families in a fact-gathering mission, he said that he decided to veto it. The bill passed both chambers of the Ohio legislature earlier this month. Acronyms, thank you. Thank you, 8726. Friday was the final day DeWine could veto it. The bill would also have blocked transgender student athletes from playing in girls and women's sports, both in K through 12 and in college and universities. Were I to sign, this is DeWine making the announcement. Were I to sign House Bill 68, or were House Bill 68 to become law, Ohio would be saying that the government knows better what is best for a child than the two people who know the child best, the parents. Child abuse is illegal, sir. Are you suggesting that parents should have the ultimate responsibility to make any and all decisions about how to rear their children absent any government interference whatsoever? That's fine. That's fine. As, let's see, as, I lost it there. 7832 writes, aren't you a libertarian? You people are all about these decisions, man. I can tell, I can tell this dude MM is talking to has no idea about the Titans, ha. I think he's talking about you, Mason. He answers things in a vague way. Mason's been up since 4 o'clock this morning. He can answer anything in any way he wants to.
And he's also not wrong. It's been a while since I've been fully invested in the Titans.
Well, good for you. You don't get fully invested in any sporting activity. Yeah. Not with your time. Aren't you a libertarian? He asks of me. You people. What do you mean you people are all about these decisions, man? I agree that the government should intervene in any sort of decision only if these decisions are going to affect the health and safety of the broader population. However, we have age restrictions in this country for a lot of different activities because of the health and welfare of others that are involved. We have determined in our society, in the United States of America, that we are going to put certain age restrictions on activities that are considered to be adult activities only, such as drinking, smoking, and other activities, sexual activity, for example. What Mike DeWine has suggested is that it is up to the parents to determine what, if any, activity along any of these lines their child can engage in. And I would suggest to you there are certain barriers that even the grown-ups cannot cross. And that is not designed to take away the rights of the parent. It's designed to protect the rights of the child, a child that as a society we have determined cannot make these decisions on their own until they reach a certain age. How hard is this to understand? Now, the decision to take away a parent's right to determine their child's future in this way should not be made lightly. I believe that parents should have far-reaching authority to make these determinations on their own. Only if and up until they are denying the rights of the child to succeed as an adult and potentially damaging their health and their safety and their well-being in the process. So let me just put it to you in a real clear way. If Mike DeWine is correct and the parent has the ultimate authority in determining these matters for their child, explain to me why it's not the parents who ought to determine when their child should be able to have sex. Think about this for a moment. Mike DeWine is telling you that the government has no role in deciding whether or not a child should have a permanent surgery permanently altering and disfiguring their bodies. That is not the government's business. That if a parent wants to begin puberty blockers on a child of 10 and continuing said puberty blockers until such time as the child reaches, let's say, the age of 12, and then literally having a surgery to cut off or add parts to the child. I don't want to get too graphic here, but I could. And I've seen some of the images, and it is disturbing, to say the least. So tell me if Mike DeWine is right, and if it is the parent and only the parents who should make these determinations, why is the government involved in saying that a 12-year-old child cannot have sex with a 30-year-old man? Why can the 12-year-old child not drink alcohol? Why can the 12-year-old child not get a tattoo? Why can the 12-year-old child not smoke cigarettes? These are serious questions. I'm not being rhetorical, and I'm not trying to ask these questions to shock your sensibility. I'm being dead serious. If a parent and a parent alone determines that a child can have a surgery that is going to permanently cut parts of that child off, that will permanently disfigure that child for the rest of their lives, why can that same parent not decide that their 12-year-old should be allowed to have sex with a 30-year-old? I sincerely want to know the difference. Mike DeWine said, were I to sign House Bill 68, Ohio would be saying that the government knows better what is best for a child than the two people who know that child best, the parents. The suggestion in that statement is that all the parents have the best interest of the child in their hearts and in their minds, and that's not true. Sadly, that's not true. I've heard it said, and I'll repeat it now, that when I was a child, I thought my father was Superman. And then when I became an adult, I realized that he was just a guy that managed to have sex with my mother. And he was no father. It takes something special to be a real father or to be a real mother. And most of you got it in you. And I believe in most of your abilities to make decisions along these lines, but I don't believe in everybody's decision-making ability. But Mike DeWine is just blah, blah, blahing to placate to the medical and pharmaceutical industry, along with the political leftist in his state. DeWine went on to say, this is an issue that has people on both sides. They have great passion. The decisions that parents are making are not easy decisions. You know, they're just not. What we find in life, sadly, is that many times we are making decisions and neither alternative is sort of what we want, but we have to make a decision. And I just felt that there's no better person than the parent to make those decisions. I mean, honestly, the more I think about it, if you just take away gender-affirming surgery and you replace that statement with minor sex, how is Mike DeWine's reasoning any different? By the way, for those asking, it is possible that the Ohio legislature could potentially veto or override the veto of Mike DeWine. DeWine's charted a course that would lead to that consideration. A number of states require a simple majority for a veto. Thank you to Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, who was listening earlier and indicated to me that I was correct in my belief. I thought that I remember this correctly, that the Tennessee legislature requires a simple majority to override the gubernatorial veto in this state. Same goes for the state of Alabama, a state that I lived in for over 20 years. In Ohio, however, it is different. A 3/5 vote of the members of both the Ohio House and Senate are required to override a gubernatorial veto. And it remains unclear if the Ohio legislature has the votes to override DeWine's veto on HB 68. Your thoughts at 6:23 tonight on a Friday evening, 615-737-9986. Would love to hear from you on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and for Brian Wilson on The Drive.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
I've calmed down. I did so by watching this video of a sloth eat leaves. I don't know why the video popped up on my screen, but it did. It replaced my story on my laptop computer about Ohio Governor Mike DeWine that was making me insane. Well, once again, the more I think about it, the more it becomes a Babylon Bee headline. Oh, speaking of the Babylon Bee, I've got a great story for you after the bottom of the hour. It is an opinion piece on the Babylon Bee that you will absolutely find delicious. I'm going to lighten the mood here in the next couple of minutes. I want to spend the last 30 minutes of 2023 having a bit of a good time. You're invited to be a part of that good time, 615-737-9986. I've had my rant pants on for just a minute discussing the Ohio governor's decision to override a veto or to veto legislation that hopefully will be overridden by the entire body of the Ohio legislature with regard to sporting activities. I did not see where DeWine made much of a comment about the sports angle on this. But that part infuriates me just as much as the other people. Well, not as much because you're not talking about mutilating individuals, but you are talking about denying young girls the right to compete fairly in sporting competitions. We've talked to Riley Gaines on a couple of occasions on this show about her experience having to compete with men in the pool. And since the time that she had to deal with Leah Thomas, a male competing in female athletics, you've seen, and I remember, I'm elephantine, when we were discussing this 4 or 5 years ago, folks were saying, oh, come on, Matt. This is not going to grow like that. This is a minuscule portion of the population. Don't be silly. Guys aren't going to start regularly and across the country competing in women's sports. Have you seen it lately? It is growing. I saw the other day there was a cycling competition, female cycling competition, and two of the individuals that made the podium were men. You know why? Because there were two men in the competition. And men are biologically different than women. That is not to say better. They are different. We are biologically and genetically different. Does that mean that every guy is stronger than every girl? Of course not. Does that mean that every guy is faster than every girl? Of course not. But it does mean that the best of the best when it comes to physical endeavors, men are going to be better than women. I use the example all the time. If you're a fan of golf, did you know that there is no restriction on the PGA Tour disallowing women to compete? The Professional Golfers Association has no restriction against women competing in their tour, on their tour. The LPGA, that would be the Ladies Professional Golf Association, does have a restriction. Because if they did not have a restriction, it would be another PGA. Not to diminish the athletic skills, the physical abilities, and the talents of the women who compete on the LPGA Tour, but very few of them would be left if men were allowed to compete on their tour. Because men are built differently. Women do a lot of things better than men. Men do some things better than women. It surprised folks when I first made this announcement that there was no restriction on the PGA Tour. They simply want the best of the best. And occasionally women have been able to compete. Annika Sorenstam did it on a couple of occasions. I think Michelle Wie did it on a couple of occasions where she competed on the men's tour. I want to say that Lexi Thompson, who is a member of the LPGA, also did so. But it's rare. But it should not and never will go the other way because they understand that that would be the destruction of the LPGA Tour. Same thing with men and women's athletics. We'll lighten the mood in just a moment. 6:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Would love to hear from you in the final 30 of the drive for 2023 on Super Talk. America's, nay, the world's princess, Dolly Parton, bringing us back at 6:34, Super Talk 99.7 WTN The Drive. Brian Wilson back Tuesday. I'll be back Tuesday as well into my normal slot from noon until 3 here on Super Talk, information-fueled and opinion-driven. 99.7 FM, and heard anywhere on your streaming platforms and also on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I will get to the Babylon Bee opinion piece. This is great. I love the Bee. If you know, you know. The premier satire and parody website on the internet today. And I will share with you an op-ed piece written by a man by the name of Garth Struttlefud. The piece is entitled The Racist Roots of Sleep. More on that in just a moment. In the meantime, Marie is next in Nashville. Marie, thank you for the call. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. Love your show. And Matt, I know this is kind of open line Friday, and for my 2024, what I've planned to do is I've started kind of a platform, and I'm going to get out there and kind of help. And this is about step parenting. I know everybody knows or should know about the story about Adrienne Strand, the girl, 7 years old, that the stepmother had an argument with her in Texas. Her father was at work. Stepmom was home. 7-year-old girl came home. Stepmother started an argument with a 7-year-old child, made her go outside. Long story short, FedEx driver pulls up to their driveway, sees a 7-year-old, abducts her, and they find her body shortly after. What I would just like to say for 2024 is to all the step parents that are step parents or going to be a step parent, take a step back, be kind. For years, I have been studying step parenting and many, many horror stories of what children have to endure under a step parent, whether it's the father, the stepfather, or the stepmother, and the abuse that our children in this country endure from a step parent. And while the real parent stands by and lets this go on with their children. And so I'm going to spend my 2024 really educating step parents and the natural parent on how to treat these children like your own, love them like your own, and care for them like your own. Because just because you marry someone and they have a child and they're not yours and you really don't want them there, then you know what? You should probably just leave the relationship. And to the real parents, don't let somebody move into your home, whether it's a man or a woman, and abuse your child. So I'm going to spend my 2024 enlightening on step parenting because the abuse in this country, like I say, Matt, is out of control. And there's story after story of children that are losing their lives because, like Adrienne Strand, a 7-year-old child that comes home from school and the stepmother throws her out of her home and admits to not looking for her for an hour.
Well, let me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the time constraints requires me to move. But let me say this:
Thank you.
You are. My mother had a malignant brain tumor when I was 5 years old. She was able to rebuild her life and relearn how to live her life to the point that she married. Again, my father left when I was 5, and my grandfather was very much involved in my life. But when my mother remarried, my grandfather kind of took a step back and allowed the parenting to take place between my mother and my stepfather. My then stepfather was extremely abusive. He was a Vietnam War veteran. He had a lot of PTSD going on. I didn't understand it at the time, but he took a lot of his mental anguish out on myself and my older brother. And he did much of it under the nose of my mother, unbeknownst to her. So I understand very much the nature of what you're talking about, Marie, and if you want to highlight these types of the important messaging behind what you're saying, I'm your huckleberry. I'm your guy to do it because I understand how very detrimental and damaging it can be when someone comes into your life without the best intentions and does things unbeknownst to the actual parent. So let's keep in touch in 2024, and I appreciate your call today. I really do. I know very well what you're talking about. Now, that said, I've known some step parents that are incredible. In my adult life, I've seen some stepfathers and stepmothers, no pun intended, step up to the plate, and they fill in a void. And without them, I don't know what the children would do. But they fill that father figure role or that mother figure role, and they do so with such grace, and they do so with such dignity. There's a commercial that I think I've been talking about this. You see the Publix commercial with I forget what was his name, Dave. It's a Publix commercial that makes you cry, where you're dealing with a step parent dynamic, and it's like, thanks, Dave, and you're seeing little points in this kid's life. And I might have his name wrong. It might not be Dave. It might be something else. But she's like, thanks, Dave. No, Dave. Oh, thanks, Dave. And this guy's obviously her stepfather. But you see him in so many key moments in her life. Is it not Dave?
It's Chris.
Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks,
but I
Chris.
just found it. Yeah.
Have you seen that commercial?
I have.
It's tip top.
It's a good one.
I mean, you have to be a heart of stone at the end of that commercial. And if you've never seen it, just look it up. I mean, it's a fabulous commercial. I think it was going on around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's a minute long. It's called Publix Bring People Closer.
Oh man, so good.
It's a good one to watch. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Let me ask Chris. Thank you. And then it's all these different moments in her life. And then the day that she gets married, he comes in and says something to her, and she says, "Thanks, Dad." That's it. Really good. Really strong. Hubie is next in Lebanon. Hey, Hubie, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Hey, I actually got in my car just at the right time. You talked about Michelle Wee and, of course, the amazing Annika Sorenstam. But in the world of bowling, there was actually Kelly Kulick in 2010. She won not only a pro bowling tournament on the men's tour, she won a major. She won the Tournament of Champions.
Well, good for her. But Hubie, I thought we were talking about sports.
I see what you did there. Wait. Hey, Matt. First of all,
I'm messing with
I was going to say that you were one of the best recent additions to the show.
And then I screwed it up.
But I also want to say when they brought you on, and then Chris Hand, and listen, shout out to Joan Jones. She has done an amazing job this week. And listen, we have such a great staple of hosts. Not only our four fixed hosts that we have every day on this station, but listen, we have great people on standby. Also, shout out to Cameron Smith. But listen, bowling is a sport. I want everyone to remember that. But I do want to shout out myself. I've done something very few people have done. I've bowled a perfect game bowling, so I'm a bowling nerd, but I've also had a hole-in-one.
Oh, wow. That's great. I've done neither of those things. Thank you, Hubie, for the call. Congratulations on the hole-in-one. Congratulations. I mean, that's not even a humble brag. That's just a brag, what he was doing there.
He's just showing off at this point. He's just like, hey, by the way.
Is bowling a sport? Is pool a sport? Billiards. pocket billiards.
I wouldn't say pool is a sport. No,
No, I don't think bowling's a sport either.
It's like they all take skill.
I mean, it's a skilled leisure activity.
Chess takes skill. I wouldn't
Right.
call chess a sport.
It's because it's not a sport.
Yeah.
It's a skilled leisure activity. Is
Yeah.
what I would define it as. All right, Hal is in Dixon. He might be the final call of the year. You never know. Hey, Hal, how are you?
Good. I'd say there's sports and there's games, huh?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that. I mean, I don't want to get into the fight with the boulders of the world. I mean, I don't want to upset Hubie on me because if he can make a hole in one, he could probably pop me with a golf ball from 100 yards away. So I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
That wasn't at the putt-putt, was it?
I was about to say, we never asked.
Now, anyway, I was kind of going to go off course a little bit and say that Nikki Haley really messed up and said that she wasn't alive when the Civil War happened, so she really didn't know other than what she read. Ronald Reagan would have gave an answer like that.
Well, I mean, Nikki Haley, sadly, she got caught with her proverbial pants down and did not know how to answer the question. And you could tell, thank you, Hal, for the call. I'm going to run along. You could tell that Nikki Haley knew that it was something of a setup as the question was happening and as she tried to formulate an answer. I illustrated what I thought the proper answer would be yesterday on the show, and I won't go over it in full throat, but I'd say this. That the Civil War, my answer would have been the Civil War was fought over the issue of states' rights and the role of the federal government to dictate to the various states what they may or may not do that has previously been legal in those states. One of the rights that the southern states in particular insisted on having and keeping was the right to own human beings as property, which we now rightly recognize as an evil institution. This was in addition to some of the other issues going on at the time that caused consternation and friction between the South and the North, like the industrialization of the North and the largely agrarian society of the South, like the tariffs and the trade embargoes that existed at the time that the Southerners believed were to the North's benefit and to the South's detriment. There were other matters that were going on as well, including the inclusion of new states as to whether they would be free or slave. All of those things combined to the tension that led to the Civil War. To suggest that slavery wasn't a part of it is being ignorant of history. To suggest that slavery was the only part of it is equally ignorant of American history. And then you go on to say this, and this is something that DeSantis's campaign added to the contribution or added to the conversation. It should be noted that one of the greatest achievements in the history of the Republican Party is the elimination of slavery as an institution in American society. And it goes to show you what a great achievement it was that it remains the number one achievement of the Republican Party. They defeated the Democrats who wanted to keep slavery as an institution. And that is a fact. In the meantime, there's this from the Babylon Bee. This is a little bit of a New Year's gift from me to you. The Babylon Bee gets me in more ways than one. An opinion piece entitled The Racist Roots of Sleep. Sleep is a necessary and universal human activity that is essential for physical and mental well-being. However, the history of sleep and the attitudes surrounding sleep are riddled with racist beliefs, practices, and ideas. When you sleep, you cannot work unless you are participating in a sleep study. White people have more wealth than black people and other races. Therefore, white people can afford to sleep better than the other races. This is one way the distribution of sleep is racist and perpetuates racism. There are only so many sleep studies, and black people cannot perform them all. Another way sleep has racist roots is due to the segregation of sleeping spaces. Historically, in America, masters slept in the master bedroom, while slaves slept in the slave bedroom. Today, slave bedrooms are now known as guest bedrooms or secondary bedrooms. Yet this rebrand does not remove the stench of racism, which has long and deeply entrenched itself in the history of the United States. Additionally, the inventor of sleep, a man by the name of Bob Sleep, was a documented racist and slave owner. In fact, many historians believe Bob Sleep first entered the altered condition of mind and body known as sleep in order to avoid interacting with black people. Anyone, particularly anyone white, who engages in sleep today is perpetuating a dangerous and harmful practice with racist roots. But this harmful history has not stopped people from sleeping. In fact, despite the fact that 1 in 8 people who die in America die in their sleep, we Americans continue our sick fascination with rest. You can't be woke if you're asleep. So if you don't want to be a racist, the solution is clear. Stay awake forever.
I'm already on the right track. I never sleep.
I love the Babylon Bee. So good.
I'm in danger.
It's 6:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We wrap up the drive for 2023 right after this. Super Talk 99.7 WTN winding down 2023 on this last Friday of the year. Obviously, we'll be celebrating the New Year's holiday Monday. So best of programming throughout the course of the day, and we're back in full song on Tuesday. What is that? Tuesday the 2nd?
Yep, there you go. You got it.
I suck. I'm tired, too. I'm not as tired as you.
I'm not tired. I don't know what you're talking about.
tired. You're tired.
Liar.
You know where you are, Mason? Yeah, probably so. All right, let's go to Al in Oak Hill as we wind down 2023. We've got a couple of other matters to discuss before we hand off to the top of the hour news and whomever is supporting the Mark Levin Show tonight. Hey, Al, how are you?
Hey, guys, I know I've got limited time, well-versed in the subject of the slavery thing and how that should be answered, but we look at everything through such a myopic lens. Slavery was not a state of the South or a state of America. It was a state and condition of the time. And a big testament to that are the Scotch, Irish, even the Cornish that were indentured servants here for years. And the beautiful thing that came out of that is they and the escaped slaves all went to the Appalachians and the hills and hollers, and that is where the cradle of rock and roll, bluegrass, and country is, not the Delta, because it went to the Appalachians. That's where it was really rooted and formed, because there were no instruments. You had communities that were isolated that had to make their own instruments based on where they came from. That's where we come up with the dobros and mandolins, etc. Also, when Jefferson Davis was imprisoned, why do you think all the northern senators were lined up around the block to talk to him? Because it wasn't Southern families sitting on the porch waving their fans and drinking mint juleps. They were corporations. Yes, families owned them. And when they did, they were like family members, just like the indentured servants. The corporations is where you got the foreman and the abusive treatment that is so notorious, and all that is where you removed it, that personal touch, and made it a business. Also, the misconception that you had white dudes running through Africa throwing lassos on people is completely erroneous. It was slave ports.
Well, not to suspend the discussion here, Al, but I mean, at this stage for me, that I don't mean to diminish. I mean, it's. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I mean, most people in modern civilized society recognize that the institution of slavery, whether it happened 150 years ago or as it happens today, and it is happening today, is awful and evil. And it was, as you say, largely universal in society in that era. England advanced the cause of eliminating slavery in their country before the United States of America did, and America was on a little bit of the cutting edge of doing it on our own. So I appreciate the call. I'm not trying to diminish your call. I do want to get to a couple of other things before I say goodnight. But no, there is a lot of stereotyping. There is a lot of glossing over of some of the minutia of the history of that era. And we should be students of history. We should not try to rewrite history for our own purposes. And sadly, the political left, as Al is pointing out, likes to use history as a bludgeon for their own purposes. And it's wrong. I have to do this because it just gives me great delight to do it. One more Babylon Bee. During this holiday season, sources across the country indicate that the joyous start of the Kwanzaa season has seen white liberals all over the nation begin wishing each other a happy Kwanzaa. White progressives, young and old, gathered for a time of honoring the celebration of African-American culture. Those sources confirmed they were having a tough time finding any actual African-Americans celebrating the holiday, which, quote, is probably Trump's fault, one college student said. Happy Kwanzaa, said Michael Smith, 27, to his group of friends as they gathered at the Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade for their traditional Kwanzaa gathering. I hope you're all having an Furaha Kwanzaa festival this winter season. His friends stared at him. Furaha means joyful in Swahili. I Googled it, he said. His friends returned the festive Kwanzaa greeting as they went off in search of some black people to wish happy Kwanzaa too, but most were confused or responded with, Merry Christmas? Similar scenes played out all over America as white liberals enjoyed their holiday of pretending to be very accepting and diverse. At publishing time, white liberals had sent missionaries to Africa to spread the good news of Kwanzaa. So good.
Reads almost like a radio drama.
So good. Look, I hope you've had a wonderful 2023. God bless each and every one of you. I truly do consider you family and extended family. And from our family to your family, for Brian Wilson, for Mason, for the entire crew at Super Talk 99.7 WTN, I wish you a wonderful New Year's Eve. Be very, very safe. Be very, very careful. And let's all gather back here on the 2nd, this coming Tuesday, 2024. Until then, have a wonderful weekend. Hope your team wins, unless your team is FSU. In that case, go Dogs. See you Tuesday.
Oh, Matt, I almost forgot. See you next year.